and good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you. An exciting topic. I know we are living somewhat in interesting times, and perhaps some of our plans have gone a bit awry, but I think it's really important to gather this group together, and lots of smart people in even a virtual room will have great ideas and sharing great information. So we're at the California State Library very supportive of ebook programs. We know our funding has been at least temporarily withheld from the federal government, so we're exploring other options at this point, but really want to get into the nitty-gritties. The first panel will be speaking folks who are involved with the Palace Project and having ebooks available there. So exciting to learn more and hear this exciting information. So are we panelists, Sarah and Jen, are you feeling up to this? And Julie, yes. Am I seeing all of you? It's an interesting experience to do this from afar, so pardon me if I stumble on things. You're not really here to hear me anyways, you're here to hear the experts. So perhaps, although we shared some questions out, perhaps in the order that's on the agenda, folks could introduce themselves. So it goes Julie, Jen, and then Sarah. A little bit where you're from, how you are using the Palace Project in your entities, please.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. I'm Julie Walker, and I'm the State Librarian of Georgia, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I am certainly not the expert, not even in my agency. I have to shout out Angela Stanley, Assistant State Librarian, who has driven our Palace Project from the very beginning and who has just done a wonderful job of pulling together our great big state in this exciting project. Our agency, the Georgia Public Library Service, or I'll be calling it GPLS, really believes that every Georgian deserves access to the reading material in the format that they want. And we certainly learned from COVID on that one of the formats they really want is ebooks. And so that's why we decided to invest in shared ebooks and audiobooks to help level the playing field for libraries and for their patrons. And really, that's kind of at the core of everything we do in Georgia. We're always looking to spend our funds and to spend our resources on behalf of all of our libraries, because we're a very big, very diverse state. We're urban and rural and large and small and rich and poor. And we want everybody to be included, and we want high quality library services in every corner of our state. So a platform like Palace really gives our libraries the tools they need to share the content and maintain their own flexibility and their own local control.
Thank you so much, Julie. Now let's see. Next, I believe, is Jen. If you would do your intro, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Jen Brenner. I am the Deputy State Librarian for New Jersey State Library. Like Julie, I am not the main person for Palace. That would be Michael Mazikian, and he is our library resource sharing consultant, and he is amazing and does everything Palace. So you might see him at ALA. He's on a panel there. So for that, like Georgia, we use this platform to share library books with everyone in New Jersey. Any resident in New Jersey through a statewide library digital barcode can access Palace and all of our materials that are mostly New Jersey focused. But it does also supplement local libraries' collections while allowing them to have whatever they want specifically for their library. That's it.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Jones. I'm the Washington State Librarian, but I imagine there's a few people on this call that recognize I moved from California. I was the Marin County Librarian for 8 years prior to coming here, and I was on the Khalifa board. And so I'm sure there's a lot of folks that if we were in the room, we'd be saying hey to each other. So it's nice to be among you. I think, I just, as Rebecca said a little bit at the beginning, but there's no way to do this without mentioning the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the issues with IMLS. And for California, Washington, and Connecticut, our grants were terminated as of April 2nd. So it's difficult to talk about many of the things that are federal funding supported, but the Palace project was entirely supported by LSTA. And I have to give a shout out to, I came here just a little more than 4 years ago, and, our role in wanting to do this really came about by the prior state librarian, Cindy Aden, and the LSTA coordinator and development manager, Mike Bushman, who have just been we're a visionary and relentless about this resource being available. So for 5 years, we've used LSTA funds, and we've provided 100% funding for any interested public library to be part of implementing Palace. So I don't have any alternate resources for it. We're scrambling in a variety of ways for all the things that we do, in addition to some pretty serious state resource contractions. So we built a statewide collection. We have 35,000 ebooks and e-audio, and what's I think particularly challenging and tragic about this is that we were really starting to get traction with enough books and enough public libraries wanting to do this. Many of you, that kind of the landscape of Washington is, much like California, we have some really big, robust urban libraries and many, many small libraries. So as was mentioned, this really helps level the playing field. I think King County Library, I think, is they're either they compete between being the number 3 and the number 5 largest circulator of ebooks in the overdrive format. So, there's huge presence for support for that. We also put together a consortium to get ebooks. So really, we just saw Palace as this wonderful project that could, provide this other resource that really could be accessible and level that playing field. So we'll see what happens, but right now we're just very uncertain that our level of support for this program can happen, and most concerned about the things that we bought supposedly for perpetuity is now we don't know how we're going to fund perpetuity. So that was probably more than necessary, but it is the times we live in.
It is definitely. Thank you, all 3 of you, for sharing, and Sarah for underlining the challenges right now for funding. Certainly, State Library in California is in the same boat. What we thought would be perpetual funding is certainly now something that we are looking in every direction to see how we can continue to support it. So with this underlying and in the background, with the understanding that we're not living in the time that we were living in last year, let's still go forward with some things about if you can explain a little bit more, I know some of you have touched on this, how have the public libraries throughout your state been integrated into this model, just so people can, build on it? We'll go in order again, if you don't mind, unless somebody has super pressing thing they want to say.
I'll be happy to go again. And I do just have to say that my heart has so been with my friends in California and Washington and Connecticut as well. Man, this is a tough time to be in libraries, and I really commend everybody for just keeping on, because it's really all we can do right now and deal with the information that we have. So in Georgia, we have all but 3 of our library systems are now onboarded onto Palace, which is great. And pretty much everything we do in Georgia, we do in concert with our libraries and in partnership. We don't act like we know what they need, because we are in constant conversation, and we pull together directors and we pull together content experts, and we really work hand in hand with them so that we're certain that we are selecting titles that they're interested in. They have some committees that collect some, select some of the titles as well, and make some purchases that are then shared statewide. We have a really strong children's curation team to work with our children's materials. We also realize that Georgia is very much a local control state, and we say that all the time. We have 60 library systems, and they do their own selection of their physical materials, of course. They do their own materials reconsideration if there are any issues in that area. And that's another great thing about this system, is that items can be suppressed at the title level, and it won't appear for the card holders of that system if they've made that decision. And then that decision does not impact the other libraries in the area. So that's just one of the many reasons the Palace system really works for us, and works for the way we do things in Georgia, so that our libraries really have a lot of say, and we are just there to coordinate and facilitate.
Julie. Now, Jen, do you have things you want to add? I know some things are similar. Possibly frozen, Jen, or just don't have your microphone on. Okay, we'll come back. Sarah, are you ready to leap into the
Sure,
fray?
yeah. I didn't know, Julie, that we have the exact same number of systems. So we also have 60 systems in the state of Washington. And I think, as I mentioned before, just that huge diversity of big, robust, urban, King County, Seattle, Spokane, Snow Isle, and I don't know, about 7, really robust systems that, for the most part are pretty well funded. And then every other size, down to the little teeniest library that, might be open 20 hours a week with, sometimes even a volunteer. So there's that huge spectrum. So I think, we've offered it to every single public library, and we don't have all of them on board yet, but we were really making excellent progress with getting everyone on board. We also, I think, as this is mentioned, has tried to really support a collection that supports the state of Washington. So we were able to broker those some local history type books, which I think have been really, really popular. And I think that was also a really wonderful thing, because it comes from the state library. So having that sense of materials that are important to our history and heritage. So it's, like I said, we were, I think, prior to, our current situation, just really seeing tremendous momentum. I think that, the flywheel is turning in all the right directions. And I don't know if I think that there might be some other places for us to, figure out funding for this, but I don't know that we were quite at the place where, that individual libraries would be ready to pick up the resource that the state library has been funding for the past 5 years. So, but in the sense of all of these kind of problems with our federal funding, it's pretty new to us. So we're working with our community as closely as possible. But there's going to be an awful lot to pick and choose from if local libraries determine to step up and help us with our consortial activities.
Thank you, Sarah. Now I can't tell because there's almost 100 people in the chat. Was Jen able to rejoin?
I am looking for Jen, but not yet.
Yeah, I don't see her on the chat, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you so much. We will come back to her. I know she has some similar experiences, but may want to fill in some gaps. So for our 2 standing panelists, for the
actually,
moment at least,
Rebecca, can I jump in here? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have the deputy or the LSTA administrator, Michael McKinsey, who is able to step in for her. I guess Jen's internet has been knocked out, so
Oh my
she might be
goodness,
on for the
what
long
a,
term.
then
But
Mackenzie would be great.
I believe I can make Michael a co-host and allow him to step in here. Give me 1 second.
He is
Sure.
a
He's
co-host.
already set as a co-host. We're golden there. Michael, if you want to unmute and enlighten us, please.
Well, let's let Michael say hi and introduce himself as he's coming in. Thank you for stepping in.
Hey, thanks so much. I just got a text from Jen that her internet is down from the high winds in South Jersey. So I'm going to be pinch hitting today. Hi, I'm Michael Mazikin. I'm the Shared Services Project Specialist here at the New Jersey State Library. And as JB kindly mentioned before, I do handle the palace purchasing. So the question at hand was the um, participation of local libraries.
Yeah, how are they in the model in your state, and what has the state library been doing to work with those public libraries around the state?
Sure, and that's actually been our main focus over the last couple of years. New Jersey is it's a fairly unique, well, all states are unique, but it's an interesting setup we have in New Jersey as we have 21 counties. 14 of them have county libraries. 12 of those are county systems, and then everything else is made up of standalone municipal and city libraries, the vast majority of which belong to voluntary consortia, which means that implementation of the Palace Project is a completely different discussion based on which library administration you're speaking to. And so much of what we've been working on is making sure that local libraries are implemented in the Palace Project, meaning that their collections can appear as alongside our statewide curated collections and the Palace Bookshelf. The biggest challenge has been kind of overcoming the concerns of too many products for the patrons to handle. I mean, that's a question that we get a lot. And in general, we kind of talk about it in terms of, our patrons are used to dealing with, a large number of services, whether it's streaming services, music services, all of that kind of content. And this Palace is kind of a way for us to consolidate and say, well, this is one fewer place that your patrons need to go. And the other biggest concern that we have is people worrying about, hey, are we looking to replace the services that we're, offering at a local level, which we're not. What we are doing here is we're working to supplement what people have in a meaningful way. So a lot of people will say, well, this is what we do. Is well, we're not asking you to change what you're doing. What we're asking you to do is give your patrons more. So much of our focus has been, answering individual questions of library administrators and collection developers, and just getting people implemented. We're just crossing 100 individual entities here in New Jersey. There's a lot to go, but we're moving along.
Thank you, Michael, and again for pinch hitting today. So let's move on to the next question. And just to say, we'll still stay in the same state order. So Julie, now Michael, then Sarah, when I ask a question. But if you've got a burning thing, you can jump in at any time. And so my next topic of discussion would be, if we were working in a perfect world, which I know we are no longer doing so, perhaps never were, in what areas or ways would you like to see your ebook programs expand or grow or change?
I am perfectly ready to enter that perfect world. So, anytime at all, that would be great. In the perfect world, we'd have a lot bigger budgets to do this because, as I said, we are just seeing growing demand all across our state for ebooks and audiobooks. I would certainly love to see us get the cost stabilized and reduced so that libraries are not paying 5 times the amount that anyone else does for ebooks and audiobooks. It's just kind of crazy to try to justify that kind of expense. I do know that our publishers are certainly our partners in many things, including in our current IMLS issues that we're facing, and they really are standing with us because they know that this is going to affect them as much as it does us. And I am optimistic that they want to work with us so that we can afford the titles that our libraries are looking for. We want all of our libraries, regardless of their budget, regardless of their size, to be able to have access to something that we're working really hard. We enjoy selecting the titles to meet our local needs, and again, continuing to work in partnership with our libraries. But yeah, I would really love to see pricing stabilize and pricing come down so that we can meet that growing demand. We love the Palace project in terms of it being a community supported project. That's something we believe in heavily in Georgia. You might remember that we were the developers of Evergreen, so we've long been involved in community supported software, and this really is the kind of model that we prefer, and we love having our voices heard, and I certainly want that to continue.
Thanks, Julie. Isn't it nice to briefly live in a perfect world? Okay, Michael, how about you?
So, thank you. So here in New Jersey, we've been focusing exclusively in the statewide collection, building perpetual access on metered titles. That's one half of the mandate, and the other half is focusing on New Jersey related subjects. So what we, I know that JB mentioned before that what we look to do is meaningfully support local collections. And so what we've done so far is we've been building out collections that would be of interest to everybody in New Jersey, but aren't necessarily going to be supportable by a local budget with, the as we just heard about the rising costs and more limited terms that are often available of the most popular and most desired titles. So our focus has been on New Jersey subjects, industries, biographies, all of good stuff. What we are hoping still to move into next is to build some collections that are based out of New Jersey publishers. So basically we've been looking to, again, create some collections that aren't necessarily going to show up in the top 20 on the bestseller list, but are going to cover a wide range of subjects. Places like, in New Jersey, we Princeton University Press, Rutgers University Press. So that's been a goal of ours, to expand out of the New Jersey subject, which has been a lot of fun to build and is moving. And I'd love to talk. I could talk about that all day, but I won't because there's other people on the panel about the process of building out that collection. But just really expanding to create something that is of high value to our patrons. So we'll see how that goes in the coming months. But that's the goal for us.
Michael, now Sarah. Relish living in the perfect world for the moment.
Yeah, well, I guess I really echo what was said before. Same thing, this idea that we would get stabilized funding for all types of ebooks, similar to how we buy print resources, I think is incredibly important. And even though that continues to be a really hard battle, I think we have to never give up on that, because it's it's in service to our libraries, in service to the communities. And then also, as I mentioned before, and then echoing too for New Jersey, same thing. We would like to have Washington content, the more unique things. We also, to the extent possible, for obvious reasons, we did try to build the collection so it had diversity, equity, and inclusion in it, which I'm very proud that we did. I don't know what effect that has had on us in light of federal issues, but as many states, we and that whole many of our libraries are really under-resourced in being able to buy collections. So being able to have collections that are supportive of those needs, their inability to have a big a large ebook or even print collection. And then I was really intrigued, which I hope that, this perfect world helps me get back there, is our state library has a library, a really significant library. We have 2.1 million items. We're a regional federal documents depository. In fact, I did a news interview just before this meeting and showed our territorial collection, which is the collection of books that have been in existence since Washington became a state in territorial times. So one of the roles that we've had that's been not as well, used and as I would like, is our service to state government workers. And so I think Palace has a unique opportunity to, be another resource that we can offer to our we serve everyone, and we're fine, wonderful that every Washington resident can have a state library card, but the niche support of state library workers is it's important to us, and I think that it's been a challenge. So I think Palace could do that. We have an open house just with our agency, which is the Office of the Secretary of State, and we get everyone a library card so that and we show them that resource. In addition to, we support LinkedIn Learning at the state level too. So again, that whole niche about support to state workers, I think Palace and some other things have a real role there.
You. All of you have spoken about what is unique about perhaps the collection that you're building or helping to build in Palace, and what's been really working well and what's important to you. Now let's go back to the less perfect world. What would you consider sort of the baseline services that would be holding on tooth and nail to retain? And then what do you see as an opportunity here to brainstorm? I think Sarah mentioned, of course, that state employees access, that might be an important thing for making sure that people out there know that this is an important service. But what might be some imaginative things that might be able to grow the program even or sustain it even in the times we live in? Okay, that was a long question. Julie, interpret as you wish.
I'm really thinking about sustaining this. I think we're all thinking about sustaining a lot of the things that we do. And to me, it so much comes down to relationships. And we say that a lot. I am one of the fortunate state librarians that I do have direct relationships with my legislators at the state level, and I am allowed to advocate at our Capitol. And I've spent all the years that I've been in this seat building those relationships. And the last several years, I've described it as really walking a tight wire, because I am talking to the exact same people, asking them for money and arguing against some bills that would be perhaps harmful to libraries, some content level bills. So that continues to be our challenge. And while the federal landscape is so uncertain, we have absolutely no idea what is going to happen in the next 2 hours or after we go to sleep tonight and when we get up in the morning. But I think we all do still have state funding and local funding, and continuing to build those relationships with those funders, show them that our libraries really are community hubs and trusted community resources, and very responsive to local needs and to local values, is going to help us maintain the support that we have and perhaps grow that support. I think for something like this, I have found many, many, many people who look surprised when I say, you can download audio at the library. You don't have to subscribe to Audible and pay money. You can do it for free. And they look at me like, wow, you got to be kidding. So I think we have to do a really good job of telling that story, of promoting and marketing, and it's something we really focus on here, and still haven't reached everybody. So I think it's important to, because that's the way we're going to build that support, is if more and more people want it, they want the program to expand, they want to see more titles. They want to see more favorable conditions in terms of being able to have things licensed so that they do work in a library setting. So I just always am trying to look for, I want to be doing something. I want to take action. And I think the action that we can take is to develop the support that we can at the levels that we have it. And I think that we need to pull our librarians and our library directors and our library staff and our trustees in as well, so that they can cultivate those local relationships. Because while I can do it at the state level, it's a great big state and I can't have a relationship with every single local government official, but I think all of us can work towards the funding so that we can continue important programs like this.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, it is. You're right. People are always surprised if they're not regular library users. Like, what? I can do this? What? So getting that word out and talking to people and building those relationships, as you say, definitely key. All right, Michael, you're up next. However you want to interpret all those things I threw out at the beginning or build off of Julie.
Sure. So I'm not kind of authorized or in any way qualified to speak about budget or advocacy or any of those issues. That's the pay grade that I am not at here. However, I can speak about how we've supported this project in the past and what we're looking at to the in the future. So the costs of the Palace project, we've generally been paying them with a mix of federal and state funding. And the three parts of it are the hosting fee, the implementation fees for libraries as they sign on, and the collection development. And so for us, the most important element of that, of course, is the hosting phase, the continued access. Right now, we're very we're glad that we have been pursuing this mandate of these perpetual titles and unmetered access titles, because we know that regardless of what happens next, if we can maintain access to the platform for our libraries, then those titles are not going anywhere. And that will be a collection that's permanently available to residents of New Jersey. So looking ahead, if times are tight, that allows us to either times are very tight, that allows us to build a collection or absorb the costs of new libraries signing on. This year, through the end of this fiscal year, we are able to certainly pay the cost of implementation for New Jersey libraries signing up. If there are any New Jersey librarians listening in this call. But beyond that, we don't know. I mean, it's uncertain. But we are, this really has reinforced, how important it is to us that we seek out, pursue perpetual access titles, because this is the downturn that we've been concerned about. And so in answer to your question, that's our focus, our primary focus would be on maintaining those hosting fees so that we can provide access to the collections we have.
Thanks, Michael. And yeah, those perpetual licenses are a really cool thing. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add here or build off of what your colleagues spoke of?
I just say both of those things. I am most concerned about the perpetual licenses, and then of course, if you do that, then access and what that looks like. My office, the State Library here in Washington, is part of the Office of the Secretary of State, and our secretary is incredibly supportive of libraries and has been really forefront of trying to keep us strong and vital. So I think when times are better, we will certainly be able to figure out how to continue to maintain these things, whether or not the federal money is completely eliminated. I mean, for us at this point it is, but maybe we'll get some federal some relief based on the court case. But I think we all have to be realistic that the next number of years for federal money is going to be really difficult. And should it even come back to us, the kind of strings that it has could be really challenging for open access to a variety of materials. I mean, just imagining that, you could have federal money, but there's a huge not list of things that you can provide access to. I don't think that it's unrealistic to think that that's a future we could be looking at. I think in this and all things, it's what, what do our strong collaborations, I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been a public library director 3 times and a state librarian twice. And I think this is probably going to be a time when our support for all of our public libraries, hopefully we're going to see some of that reciprocity, that they will come and help us, hopefully even just for a shorter term, to get through some of these most difficult situations. The state of Washington does not have any form of state aid to public libraries, except for a very small amount that supports buildings. And so that was something that I was, trying to move along before many difficult things happened. But the truth of the matter is that we are going to need more state resources with what this future looks like, at least for the next 3 to 5 years.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know it's a really hard time for at least some of us in the room, for sure. And it is nice that this community can get together and share ideas. Let's backtrack a little bit. Now, I didn't put this in the pre-questions, but is there anything for folks that are not yet involved in, say, the Palace Project, anything you wish you had known at the beginning that you learned and would love to share out to your colleagues around the country? Oh, guess what, Julie? You get to go first if you have something. If not, you can say pass, because this one's one I sprang upon everybody.
I am going to pass on this because, as I say, I had Angela Stanley, my wonderful expert, who knew a lot about this at the beginning and is a resource sharing expert. And she made it look so easy that I'm sure there's probably was nothing she didn't know already. But so I'm gonna listen and learn from my other colleagues on this one.
Totally fair. Thank you. Though it's great to have folks in our organizations who just make things go. Make it go. Okay, Michael, did you want to address this one or also pass, since it's an unfair question, probably?
I mean, I'm drawing a bit of a blank on it right now. I mean, I guess the main thing. So I when I started my position at the state library, this was already underway in the state. So there were already, we'd already built a core collection at the state level. I guess really it was I kind of went in with building a plan with a great crew at the New Jersey State Library as we went for how to promote. Um, and we once we got our statewide virtual barcode off the ground and it was available to all of New Jersey residents, I think we didn't really anticipate the enthusiasm at the level that we saw it. I mean, we were working on getting it implemented in libraries, and we got one press release into a New Jersey newspaper. And I remember we checked our stats overnight and immediately assumed that there was a mistake, that that we weren't going to get a couple thousand people overnight, and something had gone wrong with the stats. And as it turns out, it had really had really picked up. And so that kind of, shifted us a bit from, okay, so we've been talking to libraries and we've been talking about getting, how to get this out there, but how can we move towards really, speaking directly to residents of New Jersey and letting them know, hey, I mean, speaking, bluntly, you're a taxpayer. You paid for these. This is one of those things that, that you just have for the rest of your life now. Just to make your life a little bit better. And so we shifted our messaging a little bit, away from our kind of, hey, go to your local library and read about all the things you have to offer, to like, hey, go to your local library, but also we're going to speak directly to you and let you know that this is something that's just yours now. So it was a great, that's what I wish I had done earlier.
Well, I understand. I love that, though. Thank you. Speaking directly to people, and yes, the popularity when your state card goes live. We experienced that in California most recently, and apologies if that impacted any of you out there. And thank you to the Palace team for getting it back and going right really quickly. Sarah, anything to add in this random question I threw out there?
I'd add two things. One is I wish that our moment in time now was 2 years ago, because I feel like this is where we are with the Palace project and the number of states and the wide access. I think if we had a little more time at this magnitude under our feet, I think our ability to find these alternate resources would be much easier. So I think there's that issue. And then I just think, and I keep coming back to more global thoughts, but I wish this and in all things we weren't such a best kept secret. I think that that's really difficult and challenging for us. And I don't, it's state libraries, it's, to a certain extent, it's all libraries. We're really good about providing really amazing services and don't show how hard it is to do that, the level of services that we're providing. I've probably been doing 3 to 5 media interviews every week since the executive order hit on March 14th. And one of the things that I'm talking about and I'm asked so often is that, the state library is really the fabric and behind all of this. We weave it all together. We're supportive of so many different things. And I guess my largest concern is that our role and relevance and importance is not going to be known until we're not there anymore. And that's a pretty tragic thing to say. So on the positive note about that is we just need to, sing our own praises louder. We need to be much more obvious about the work that we do so it can be seen as fundamental. And, that hopefully that maybe this is a bit of a painful lesson we're learning in this particular moment.
Yeah, thank you. I think state libraries and libraries in generally are the serene swan swimming across the pond, madly paddling underneath the water. And people don't necessarily realize what's going on because we're just so focused on getting the services out to people who need it and not telling the story necessarily.
I say that often. We're very much doers and not talkers.
Yeah, hopefully we're learning, unfortunately, quickly, how to shift that a little bit. All right, I know we want to leave time for questions, so I would like to give the panelists an opportunity to speak to something that I didn't ask about or you would like to share. Perhaps we've covered it all, but I bet there's one or two things that you'd love people to know. But this could be your crystal ball prognostication, or it could be just highlighting something you'd already touched upon already.
Well, on the very quick crystal ball question, I've got just a couple of observations, which is I think demand is going to continue to grow. I think we are going to see that tension I mentioned earlier between advocating for funding and fending off some kinds of censorship challenges. We have had one come up this week in an ebook context. And, I think that when you're talking to the same people about those two things, it's a very delicate balance. And I think we're just going to have to deal with that. And that does come back to telling our story and getting our patrons to speak out for us and in defense of us, and showing that demand is something that we really do need to meet. I also think it's going to be really interesting to have these ongoing conversations with publishers, because they're going to have to deal with the reality of our funding situations for certain. And I think they're going to have to show a willingness to look at some alternate licensing models. I think if there's one silver lining in all this, it is that they are going to have to come to the table, because our circumstances have changed. And in order for us to continue to work with them, they are going to have to work with us, and they're going to have to understand where we are and what we need and what the limitations on our funding are. If I can have my one little moment of closing, I'd just like to read a quote from one of our libraries because, again, the reason we do what we do is those, in my case, 408 libraries around our state. And so this one says, at Cherokee Regional Library, we've seen a nearly 16% increase in digital circulation in the past year, thanks to Georgia's strategic digital content investments and the launch of the Palace platform. Palace makes it easier for patrons to access all of our digital content in one place, including simultaneous use titles we already owned but were previously difficult to reach, maximizing the value of our collections. Georgia's libraries are making it easier than ever for readers to dive into the books that they love. So that kind of says that this is something that's worth doing, and it's working for the people of Georgia. So we're looking forward to continuing. My final thought is I'm so happy that there are many of us together in this because I think we're stronger together. I think our voices are amplified when we're kind of all pointing in the same direction, and I look forward to continuing to working with all of you.
Really, thank you. And for sharing that quote, which sums up why we all do this kind of thing. Yeah. Michael?
So, if we're gonna look at where things are going next, I mean, I try to keep tabs on ebook lending or purchasing models, lending models, all of that as much as possible, which I'm sure everybody in the room knows is almost an impossible task to keep up with. But there's, I'm sure people are following, various legislative efforts and policymaking efforts and, things happening across the country. What I'm seeing is things are moving in two directions right now. First, if you look at the trends of, bestsellers and popular items, they're not the best for libraries and for library budgets. That's obvious. I mean, we've seen, both, more restrictive terms, higher costs, simultaneously, but we've also seen really, really promising, progress, especially coming out of, independent publishing. You can see the digital ownership model, coming out from the independent publishers group. You can see flexibility, there. Just today, I was looking, there's a publisher that's just shown up on the Palace marketplace, that has perpetual licensing available for their titles, and then at a higher cost, perpetual licensing simultaneous use for the same title, which is the first time that I've seen that for items for the general public in that marketplace. So to me, I would say the direction things are going to go is likely going to be the direction in which libraries choose to spend their money. And so I would hope that if the publishers are listening, that libraries are willing to both say openly and spend in the direction which is going to lead toward long-term sustainability. I'm aware that that's not always, going to be possible, and then that's not always going to be, allow libraries to purchase everything that people are looking for. But I do think that we're at a turning point here where you have some publishers that are looking to be more flexible, some publishers that are looking to offer terms that have traditionally been looked at as more restrictive. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's up to libraries to state what they expect and what their expectations are, what's sustainable for them, and what they're looking for in the future. That's where I'm.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling out that crystal ball and the prognostication. Now, Sarah, anything to sum up or forecast, or what would you like to say for us?
Well, I think I got a theme going here, but those of you on this call, I mean, I think we have all people from all over the country, but we need your help and support. I think that the federal issue is very real, and advocacy is incredibly important, that Congress hears that this program matters. I think there's, we still do have an effort that's possible to save it. And we need to all do that together, because I think that this is a place where all types of libraries really need to, we need to get together and be strong together, cutting some of us off and, because of the different funding issues, whether it be, at the state level or just in your own states, about how some libraries might have, more challenging than others. We need to act like professionals, and we need to save this profession and be really loud about it. So I think that's how I would end my comments.
Thank you, Sarah. Absolutely stronger together. I was trying to keep an eye on the chat. I didn't see any specific questions, but oh, wait, I'm wrong. One just popped in. If any of the panelists would be able to take this one, it's one thing I'm curious about is what quality assurance Palace has for its platform. I know individual library systems can block items, but that would still be a lot of effort if they're overwhelmed with low quality content. Now, I know our panelists may not be the ones handling that, but if you have heard of this, do say.
So
Michael.
we got a lot of AI questions real fast this year. And I won't speak to what the impetus was behind them, but yeah, very quickly we started getting that question. We did reach out to our representatives with the Palace team and said, hey, what is other? So the one main thing is that because we're pursuing an active and conscious collection development project, it's really up to us at the end of the day, state level, to ensure that what's there meets the standards that we're looking for. But one of the big questions came out about the Palace bookshelf and the content there, because that's content that's just available to everyone. And so we were able to, have some discussions with our Palace reps, and we're finding is that, well, the material in there, it's largely public domain, open access, available to everyone. They're not flooding it with mass-produced content. It's not necessarily going to be, not everybody's going to be out there pursuing it. But it's a lot of it's very niche, but it's not the what's the term for it, the AI sloth that people are very concerned about. So yeah, but we've been very happy with how quickly Palace was able to come back with an answer on that.
Thank you. I don't know if our other panelists, but I think that pretty much covered that one. Not seeing any other questions, may have missed something. But I would like to say thank you so much for these panelists who I have not gotten to talk to in real life, but in the future we will be in the same room together, I hope. And thank you also, Michael, for pitching in. Tell Jen that we are sorry her internet went out. And I am going to stop talking and just say thank you to this group. Thank you to Paula and Krister on our side of the state for getting this together. And thank you also for our Palace project partners, certainly in California and the states you just heard from. We are liking it. All right. Thank you so much, folks. And may we all be stronger together.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
While there was, I know that grants to states has been terminated from many of our libraries, but just last night we got a letter from Kate Sonderling saying that our terminated grants that Khalifa has with IMLS, they're providing a resource or a mechanism for us to get reimbursed up to April 8th. So that's something. I hope you guys get it.
It'd be nice, not as of yet.
Yeah. Well, keep an eye on those late night mails. So I think we are going to go into a break, just a 10-minute break while we wait for Steve and from Overdrive and Michael from Lyrasis/Palace to join us for the next panel. So here we go, and Krister has entered the chat. Chris, tell us who you are.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krister. I'm a library programs consultant with the California State Library, and I work on the eBooks for All program.
And over to you, Steve. I think everyone knows you both, but
Sure. I'm Steve Potash, founder and CEO of Overdrive. Delighted to be joining you from our Blue Sky campus here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, my name is Michael Atwood. I am the Senior Director for the eBooks and Community Engagement Division here at Lyrasis, and I lead the Palace project for Lyrasis.
very good. Okay, so I had prepared some questions for you guys just to kind of get us going. And Steve, you had brought up working together some 20 years ago with Khalifa putting together an initial consortial borrowing system statewide. But so 20 years later, how are you both feeling about the current state of relations between yourselves, ebook vendors, and libraries and publishers and whatnot? I feel like from the library perspective, I feel like we're getting along better than we used to. Your thoughts, Steve?
Well, because you put both libraries and publishers in the same question, those are two different journeys that I'm proud to say we are still engaged and committed to improving, the value proposition for all the stakeholders. Obviously, if it wasn't for public libraries 25 years ago, who well before ebooks was a thing, when we first, introduced downloading popular ebooks that you could read offline with the help of public librarians. That was, 5 years before Kindle and almost a decade before the real consumer market showed up when the iPad and tablets, 2009 and 2010. So the ongoing journey we are still on today with the same mission we're on, asking our librarians, how do you want it to work? What can we use our resources to improve the value proposition for your community, your readers, your staff, and your stakeholders, the sources of funding? I think we've, had tremendous amount of progress and success. You asked me the same question about the publishers. It's a lot more nuanced. We're always rewarding and celebrating good progress made by publishers and rights holders and the author and the creator community when they are doing the right thing and constantly expanding the opportunities for fair, flexible, and reasonable cost of content. And there's a lot more work to be done. But here too, within 3 years of launching popular ebook lending, you would go at the end of the year and say, how many New York Times bestsellers were available to any public library in the United States? That answer those first few years was 0. Now today, under a variety of options, models, and pricing, if every year since probably, at least the last 15 years, that would be, we have 100 out of 100 that are available on the New York Times bestseller list for some form of e-lending. So lots of progress has been made, lots of work still ahead of us. That would be kind of a summary. Library relationships, we haven't changed our model. Working as side by side, hopefully as a partner, and attacking and using our skill set and resources as advocates for fair, flexible, reasonable access to content. And now more so, just advocates for libraries and, all of the unfortunate attacks on both intellectual freedom and now more recently just the essential services under attack with attacks on funding.
Yeah, agreed. I think we're all pointing in the same direction these days, as opposed to kind of fighting with each other to get whatever it is that we're trying to get. But yeah, I think the pressure that's coming is whether it's book banning or funding. I think this is hurting us all. So it is good that we're trying to work more cohesively together. Michael, your thoughts, publishers and libraries relationships?
Yeah, I don't have nearly the history that Steve has with the library world. I've only been here for maybe a decade. First writing software for libraries and now working more closely with them directly to figure out what they need and what they want. I do agree with everything that he said. That I think across the board it has definitely improved even since I've been involved. I remember sort of open antagonistic arguments with publishers and libraries and stuff, and that seems to have mostly subsided. One thing I think is also exciting from our standpoint is the vendors beginning to work together. I think how Overdrive has worked along with Palace, Simply first and then Palace to bring more people in and to continue to work and expand access to what the library is offering. And I think those are the kind of things that I see lots of change, and I hope continues to change and go forward. And maybe it's and I agree that the existential threat now that we've clearly seen that's been coming, from the government, from IMLS and things like that getting shut down. There's no library, then it really doesn't matter, what we're doing. So I think we all have a vested interest to deliver the best solution we can for each library.
Yeah, it's interesting in the panel before you with some state librarians across the country who do have statewide ebook collections. They were saying that it's getting more difficult. The funding issue is going to hurt state libraries specifically very hard. And what they also recognize is people may not see the benefits that state libraries or consortia provide through IMLS funding until it goes away. And so that's unfortunately, like Sarah Jones, from state librarian from Washington, said that we're good doers, but we're not good talkers. We're not great at getting the word out about all the things that all manner of libraries do.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to call out is I think even within publishers, there's a lot of nuance. There are some publishers who are very actively working with libraries in lots of unique ways. And so, there are people out there who want to do things differently. So, I think as we dig into the conversation, you end up having to really start thinking about individuals through that path. So.
Agreed. And so, despite all of the sort of negativity right now around what's happening to libraries, do you see any kind of low-hanging opportunities on the horizon for library ebooks in any aspect, whether it's working with publishers, content licensing, media types, user interface, accessibility, all of those things. Michael, we'll start with you, mixing things up. Look at me dancing around.
Sure. I'll start and talk about the Palace project specifically. I do think that there's some low-hanging fruit around improving the user experience. The existing experience has been there for a while, and we do have some new things that are coming down the pipe. Um, uh, and when we improve the experience, we look to other sort of leading apps in the category, like Libby, for example. But we also try to look at the direct consumer apps because we think people coming to the library want that same experience. So we try to take what we think is best from those various places and bring them together. And I think that's there. You mentioned accessibility, which I think is so critically important for inclusive access. I always talk about accessibility not as a destination, but as a journey. It's never really ending. So that opportunity is always there to improve accessibility. Of course, we're doing lots of work with our partner DPLA for different licensing models and things like that. But I think one of the places where we haven't really embraced yet, and I think we're heading towards that, which is exciting, is this sort of idea that a deeper collaboration between libraries, publishers, vendors, all together as a unit. How can we all work even more closely together and come up with solutions that satisfy all the different stakeholders, shareholders, et cetera. And this is something that I think the Palace Project really talks about here, is that it's really about collaboration, integrating with everyone, given the library options, and being just sort of this collaborator. So that's kind of what I think from the standpoint of like opportunities.
Very good. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, we are invested in constantly improving the value proposition on every metric or every access that, and it all starts with some of the key priorities now, which is with all the challenges that our library partners are having for funding, for staff resources, those priorities kind of have to jump the line. So let's face it, our number one goal is to be aligned across the entire country on standing up for libraries. Now, I was with Greg Lucas when we were with CASLA for Voices for Libraries, advocating and as part of a state delegation for Ohio. I'm standing up every opportunity we can at the risk of reputational risk in some certain state capitals. But I could tell you about features coming to Libby and new access models, but let's face it, even on the intellectual freedom front, are we going to really be fighting what books were taken off the shelf if the door's locked or the Wi-Fi is no longer funded? So if there's low-hanging fruit, some of that has got to wait, because right now the IMLS is only one angle of attack. I've witnessed how in our own Columbus state capital here in Ohio, they're moving the goalposts and changing the rules so that the reliable funding to the state, even though it's been cut, now it's going to be almost like a state where the governor on a whim can change the rules or pull the agency or dismiss the librarians or whoever. So it's, yes, I could talk about user engagement, content opportunities, collaboration with our media partners. There's a lot of wonderful things that by the time I see several of you at ALA, or if you ever make it to Digipalooza here in August, yeah, you're going to we have a long list of roadmap items, some which are going to be here sooner and some which are more aspirational, because I will say the biggest area of opportunity, and this is a very big opportunity with our publishers and content creators, is all rallying around things that we all agree on. And so I've been doing this, and the advocacy sometimes is even more important overseas. Because while you think we're negotiating with the publisher in New York, Macmillan, it's Stefan von Holtzbring in Germany. Hachette, it's Hachette Livre in Paris. Even PRH, even though we like Nihar and, we all love Skip Dye, let's face it, it's Bertelsmann. So we have ongoing advocacy on every one of those fronts. But I just think anytime we're getting librarians together and talking about what should be in the front of the line, it has to be being united around the essentialness of every library and supporting ALA, the state chapters, CASLA, and every other individual library who is trying to help their local lobbyist go into that state capital and ensure its survival. Sorry, turning off my phone.
Yeah, is there any one particular sort of opportunity that you're especially excited about?
Absolutely. It's all around science of reading. I believe in the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to revolutionize how young children learn the language of English, how non-English speakers can learn to speak ESL, English as a second language. I think because of the work that we're doing with Sora in the classroom, and we've been on this journey for 10 years, and now all of a sudden with AI and opportunities to actually integrate with the learning management systems and the assessments and the grade books, we crack early childhood literacy and challenge. It's already been disrupted, as you know, science of reading and structured phonics and decodables has already been embraced by public libraries, children's librarians. It's challenged the legacy Lucy Calkins School of Thought, balance, let the kids pick books and they'll learn. So the science of reading and attacking literacy, and I'm so excited we're working with Cuyahoga County and Cleveland Public Library on an adult low literacy project around health. And I learned this from Annie Norman, the essentialness of health literacy and how a state library can rally the library, the state health agencies, and make an impact on population health. Science of reading is going to have so many gifts that will further enable and empower the mission of all of our librarians and every educator. For not only can we put the right book at the right time for the student, but now we have the ability to measure the efficacy of that engagement. And I honestly think all of this is going to be rewritten in the next 2 to 3 years by the combination of tech, advance, and cloud-based services. It's a pretty exciting time.
Very cool. Michael, your thoughts on a exciting opportunity that's in your eyeballs?
Yeah, so on the follow-up with the advocacy part, I do think that, you know, at the base of the advocacy is collaboration. As everyone is together, that united front is going to be much stronger than if we have a bunch of different fronts on that piece. And that is something that Lyris as a whole is doing. We have an advocacy part of the Palace Project also, where we're keeping track of different pieces there. I think AI is going to change things. So on the changing parts of what's new, AI is going to change things in ways I don't think we fully understand yet. I've been in meetings recently where someone says it's going to change everything, and someone says I refuse to use it. You know, we're still in this sort of binary world where people might think that it's going to change the world, and someone says, you know, I don't think it's going to do anything, and I don't think that's where we're going to end up. We're going to end up in some space in between, where people who are good at using it are going to be able to develop different ways. You know, learning a language, for example, I think is a great usage, as Steve mentioned. I don't even think we really understand all the things that we're going to be able to use AI for yet. You know, a big one that we've been exploring is audiobooks, for example. You know, there's 2-ish million independent books released every year. Audiobooks are expensive to create, and if AI can create audiobooks for people, you're going to get a much larger reach again. You have more inclusive access to people who want to listen instead of reading. And so there's just an enormous opportunity, and it's going to be hard to see what they are. And I agree, in 3 to 5 years, you know, we may see things that we haven't thought of yet today.
Yeah, and in library land, that binary situation is very much the case, where we do have some very excited about the opportunity for AI in particular areas, but absolutely repulsed by it in others, namely AI-generated books.
Sure.
You know, we understand that a vendor may be attracted to being able to create a whole bunch of content very quickly. But you also understand that good reads are few and far between, and not everything is a good read. So I know that.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the question becomes, you know, what happens when AI creates a book that is good?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then what's the
Is
response?
this the 1,000 monkeys?
I don't know. I mean, I think most of it now you can tell, like, oh, I can tell this is AI, et cetera. But if we make some assumptions that the curve will continue at some level that it's at now, where it was only a couple years ago that we were just excited because Midjourney made an image, and now people are having entire conversation or relationships with what they see as an AI. So at some point, AI is going to create something that actually is good. Do we eschew it, or do we embrace it? How do we deal with it then? I think that's an open question that's going to be very interesting, and how people react to that when that occurs, because I think it will occur at some point. And then what do we do? So
Yeah. What about governance? So what role do you see that playing? We see Freedom to Read Act for being legislated in California and Maryland, New Jersey. Do you see this helping the common cause of getting these acts legislated?
are you asking me?
Yes, sir, Michael.
Oh. um, Look, I think they help a lot. I think they do a great job signaling to the public, publishers, vendors, even to the federal government, hey, this is important. We shouldn't be treating librarians as some kind of criminal act because they're making books accessible. That's just not a good path to be in. Unfortunately, what we have seen though is these laws are often passed in places that probably don't need them. I'm in the deep South. I can't imagine that law is ever going to be passed anytime soon in South Carolina, for example. That just doesn't seem like it's in the cards. And that's unfortunate. It's sad that we need these laws, but I do think they're helpful, because, like I said, I think and they trigger conversations, which I think are very good to have. Um, you know, and uh, but beyond that, I'm unsure how they're really going to impact things outside of those individual states that were already, for the most part, freedom to read type environments.
Steve, you thought?
We all know that the real solution is a federal question. And so while it's admirable that we have some governors and state capitals publicly demonstrating their values align with the values of almost all Americans, a vast 80-some% of Americans oppose book bans and restrictions on self-selected reading. So, but until someone tries to enforce a law to correct some egregious behavior in a local school board or at a county office, I just think it's too early to know the true value of that effort and energy. Yeah, it makes you feel good that we're in a state where they value reading and freedom, intellectual freedom. But let me just say, while that's going on, in those same states, there's going to be zip codes in school boards and in municipalities, or a local county judge who doesn't give a hoot about what the governor signed and is playing from the playbook that started almost 5 years ago when political dark money wanted to create an issue, for political purposes, because we all know it's all bullshit and nonsense. So I'm just always saying, with limited resources, how do we best apply that capital, that political capital in the state house, or that platform that governor has? I'm not certain that, even if we had 5 more states do their own thing, then there would be all different laws and non-uniform. And I just think that, unfortunately, that's not the right path. We need something at the federal level.
Right. Do you think though ebook platforms have made it kind of impossible to ban a book completely? If you have a book banned in one region or state, but they can access it through another state through a statewide library card or something like that. It just seems that it's harder to ban an electronic book than it is a print book.
Well,
Thoughts?
that's just the nonsense is this whole thing. Any piece of content anybody wants, there's this thing called the internet, the World Wide Web. It's not built like that. So I think it is all nonsense.
Yeah,
Bluster.
I was gonna say it's a ridiculous issue. That's the thing, and it's just being used for other purposes.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, we
And
seem
in
to be
fact,
living. Okay.
every individual librarian gets to choose what they have available within their OPAC, within their catalog, within their digital offerings. Unfortunately, as a result of this, all these challenges is being used way too frequently for not true purposes aligned with the mission. But I had one state librarian who told me 4 years ago, we're going to have to do a lot of accommodations to get through this. And unfortunately, it's coming down to accommodations of moving YA material to an adults only LibCard auth section, or pulling them out altogether. So
Moving
it's
chairs on the
yeah.
Titanic. Yeah. Michael, any thoughts on that?
Not everything I think Steve said is correct here, and I've also had librarians come to me and either stop buying children's books because they're like, we don't have the staff to deal with any challenges, so we just can't buy these anymore, which is
Wow.
unfortunate.
Wow.
Because while the books may be perfectly fine, they've been, the publisher is certified, they satisfy whatever requirements. It's just, libraries just aren't staffed to deal with even a small number of the community calling them every day and challenging books. And it's a very unfortunate situation. Not to make light, but I mean, if we can only be so lucky that kids are reading so much that these books, were on their list. So.
Well, the true center of the challenge is in the school library. That's where it originated. That's where still the most egregious impact is being felt. And unfortunately, over the last 2-3 years, it started to spill into the public libraries in select markets as a result of those forces being emboldened and getting success in the local school district. And the accommodations and the trauma imposed to educators, principals, superintendents, students, and parents in several school districts, that's the real epicenter of the war and the battle. And it's also consumed much more resources because here the granularity of access has to be down to the individual classroom, down to the individual student. It could be age-based, it could be grade-based. It's not just juvenile, YA, adult, mature adult anymore. The granularity, and that could, even in one school district, one principal says it's okay for my middle school kids to get the book. Across the street, the principal says no. So by the fact that we've been for 5 years learning from those on the front lines, we've had to make a lot of accommodations, some of which may be new tools for public libraries if this thing is warranted.
That leads me into this question of challenges. So given the current federal government movements on IMLS and funding, what impact do you see this having on your work and your relationships with us, with libraries? Steve, you want to?
Sure. It's still unfolding. So let's face it, the executive order is not even 2 weeks old, I don't believe. I think it was April 4th or 9th at this point. There was a series of steps. They announced and they showed 77 people out to the street. I gave an interview on CBS News and let them know how this was already today impacting. And I even mentioned the loss of 15 million plus to the state of California through LSTA, and 5 million plus to Ohio. It is still uncertain. We have had several libraries, and most of the impact that we are aware of are from state libraries who are operating in most cases as a safety net for rural and, you know, small underserved markets where they may not be part of a natural consortium, and, you know, but for the state of Ohio, they wouldn't have, you know, the Ohio Digital Library, which covers all 88 counties, but not so much needed by Cuyahoga, Cincinnati, Hamilton, Toledo, and the major metros. So this is where we've heard of some direct impact on budget funding, resources, or staff, but we haven't had any direct impact as we speak yet. But this is where the concern, and for that reason, I'm not announcing it now. I'm working with a number of others in the industry to raise funding for small and rural libraries as a granting organization, a 501c3, just to kind of keep the lights on and the door open for markets where, you know, X $1,000 is the difference between public Wi-Fi in the parking lot or not, or, you know, the part-time librarian, if we don't cover her expense, she's not in the rural county 1 day a week. So we're focusing on those that we think are most at risk for essential services. And that's where I think we all should be focused, because let's face it, many of the large metro, well-founded, you know, well-funded, or yeah, is this going to impact some of their programming and some of their resources? Yeah, hard decisions will be made. But when this funding represents 20% of your annual budget, now it's a different level of concern. You know, how do we keep the doors open?
Yeah. And Michael, what do you anticipate and the impact of this will be on
Yeah,
your
so
work?
I think the IMLS direct impact was well outlined there. I do think the Palace project with the various statewide implementations that it has can help keep the rural libraries intact with some aspect of the state collections. So that's useful there, particularly with the virtual library card creator that can be statewide. One thing that is concerning, because I don't think we've really seen the full impacts of IMLS cuts. The other piece that's concerning me is starting to think of second and third order effects of cuts elsewhere. So as the federal government continues to cut services to states, overall state budgets, I believe, will start to come under impact here, and money will have to start to be moved around. And I think those longer term impacts are, you know, we still don't really know what those are going to be until we start to see how that impacts, particularly if the federal government begins to cut major programs such as, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, or things like that. Who has to pick up the bill? Because those are things that just won't be cut at some point. The state will try to support a lot of those, I believe. You know, with all of the bad things out of the way, something I try to do, which kind of helps me get through the day when thinking about these things, is sort of, is there a way we can position ourselves for when this is over, when we've gotten through this time period? So, you know, if we assume that things will eventually get better, can we get in a position that we are either we've built more relationships to collaborate more closely going forward, or we've you know, we've better aligned ourselves through the challenges, and now when things are, you know, good again, we're now better equipped to take advantage of where we are at that point. So those are the
Right.
kind of conversations that we're having with various partners.
And that's something I guess is a positive, that there would be a focus on strengthening partnerships that we can, you know, move forward together and trying to solve the problems that are being caused by this lack of funding and this I don't know, cruelty that is being done to libraries, and not just libraries, but you know, all kinds of like you said, Medicare and Medicaid. Holy cow!
Yeah. Yeah, and the lack of funding is the acute issue right now. I mean, if we go back in time, libraries have been under attack for a while. So, how do we can we think about that as a bigger problem, and how do we get together as a group, as a team, as one team that we know libraries are important. We want to support libraries, and how do we work out into the future so that when we do get through this we don't just go back and say we have funding again. We can go back further and say people in general support libraries again. They're no, how do we get out of this area where they're just under attack? It seems like, and have been for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess on a positive note, do you have any newsy bits about what's coming soon to a platform near you?
Sure.
So Overdrive and Palace, what's coming?
I mean, I can talk to. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, please go first.
Yeah, so I can talk the Palace project. We talked about the user experience stuff earlier. We have a bunch of updates that are getting ready to come. We're going to start releasing them sort of piecemeal as they get ready, and I think it's going to be exciting to see. It's one of the first of a lot of different just user kind of a refresh. One thing I always like to highlight when I'm given a chance to talk to people, particularly Palace users, is there's always ongoing work with partners like Overdrive to keep and make the integration experience better. It's the non-glamorous work. No one sees it. It's a lot like plumbing. When it works, no one thinks about it. But that's always ongoing, and that's just something that's a thing I always like to call out. And the other piece I want to mention, and I already kind of brought up the virtual library card creator, but earlier this month we opened that up to the whole state of California, and we've had great uptake. And it's been really, really awesome, and we're just excited to see because of that statewide collection that's available. And we hope that it's bringing people in who might not have been necessarily tied to an existing library, and now they see what's an option, and then they maybe go to their library and sign up there, and then get access to more books. And I think that's exciting. So I just wanted to call out those few items.
Yep. And Steve?
Well, about a year and a half ago, we onboarded a California executive who moved from Sonoma County to Cleveland, Ohio, to be our chief marketing officer, Jen Lightman. And when I recruited this chief marketing executive here, she came from outside the industry, but she had huge portfolio of building large consumer fan bases for lifestyle products, and worked for a decade in broadcast media for Discovery and HGTV. She was then recruited, that's why she went to Sonoma, by Francis Ford Coppola to take his whole estate and wine business to the new, online digital. And I said, Jen, you have an assignment. You are hired to bring our US public libraries 25 million new cardholders. I'm going to give you about 24 months, give or take. So she spent the first 2-3 quarters, and then we rolled out this past July a campaign, and this was partially responsive. When I'm meeting with directors or their boards in the last year, especially like in many of the Eastern and urban library members, one of the challenges they told me was after they opened up after COVID, many of our Eastern libraries are not at their turnstile or foot traffic levels pre-2019. So one of the most urgent thing I heard from Tracy, Cuyahoga County, or Felton at Cleveland, how do I get foot traffic back to my central library? If I don't bring the traffic back, we're gonna be at risk for why do you need so many branches, staff, et cetera, cut hours. So Jen launched this product called Check Out Your Library, and she said, I'm going to go after those Americans or residents or whoever who the library doesn't have as a partner. What's been the toughest audience? Millennial males. This is what and by the way, everything I've learned because the public libraries told me this. I'm not, I'm just a good listener, and I take notes and try and see what we can deliver. So we launched this, and now this will be our first calendar year. In California, we invested in becoming the literacy partner to the Los Angeles Lakers. And if you've been to an LA Laker game or watched their broadcast, except you're in San Francisco or Sacramento because they have their own teams, the Lakers are leaning in. John Szabo is taking one of the branches of LAPL and they're converting into the Los Angeles Laker literacy branch. And while that's going on, today there was a news alert I got from People magazine. Thanks to a sponsorship we did, they're launching a new cable series called Who Wants to Be America's Next Best Author or Writer? And it's going to be a writing competition, a reality show. And we're trying to bring an audience, but to get it, you'll be able to watch it on Canopy or, I don't know what they're doing with it. I just read the press release today. I wasn't part of the deal. So what I'm really excited about is the sponsorships we're doing with national book clubs, the deals we have now with the Today Show and our president's daughter, her book club, Jenna Bush. We're entering into all these consumer partnerships. When we held the kickoff event, NASA showed up, Scholastic, PRH. We believe the next year or two, we are going to see tremendous opportunities to really popularize to broad areas of underserved library audiences and get them to discover, check out your library. And that's check out your library for career, for makerspace, for your parents, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty excited about a lot of these go to consumer. We've always done the B2B. You see us at the ALAs, the PLAs, and the state conferences. But now we have a whole team dedicated to bringing customer acquisition for the library. And once they get there, get everything the library has to offer. If we can use Libby or Canopy as a shiny thing to get them to check out the library, so be it. But we have a lot invested in 25 and 26 to really get the number of card holders our nation is serving up. And that should also help all of the other grassroots movements for supporting and protecting this treasured resource.
Yeah, agreed. Michael, you had mentioned the California bookshelf. So this is the virtual card that California just launched in February or March. And that tipped over Lyris's servers. So there's so many that signed up for it. So when people do find out about what libraries have to offer, they will come. But we're like the world's longest, best kept secret. The services that libraries provide, that people think books, but they don't necessarily think of, all of the other tool libraries and, all of the virtual reality and all of the technologies and whatnot that libraries can provide access to, and even help in health crises, doing flu shot clinics or what have you. But yeah, any last thoughts before we turn to see if the participants have any questions?
I'm just going to mention to all of those aligned with this urgency to realize that the ALA needs our support now. I know there's a lot of other national, state, regional, and interest groups around, especially books, publishing, and intellectual freedom. But ALA needs our love. And it's been several years since, Tracy Hall, stepped down. We haven't we're still waiting for the new executive director. I'm going to be in DC to celebrate Alan Inouye's retirement and stepping down after 18 years of leading public policy and advocacy in DC very effectively and diplomatically. And whether it's through your state chapter, I'm just asking vendors and all. In some states, the governor has banned any library in the state from being a member of ALA. It was sad when I was at the London Book Fair and I met with Libraries Connected, which is a corresponding umbrella organization for all the UK libraries, and their chief operating officers telling me, we are creating professional development credentialing for Americans who have been banned from taking any professional development or continuing education through ALA because the ALA is banned in their state, Tennessee or others. I just want everyone to realize it may not be a perfect organization, and their leadership ranks have been thinned out a little bit over the last few years. Find a way to support them as you would anybody else, because they are kind of essential. I'm offering a declaration or affidavit in support of the lawsuit they filed a week ago against Trump and for the IMLS impact. I could tell you, not every publisher or vendor raised their hand and said, yes, I'll attest to a signed affidavit under penalty of perjury. So we have to stand up for what's important now. And ALA is one of those things that just don't overlook. Yeah, we pay our dues, and, LibLearnX is, there's a lot of things we could say used to be better, need to be better, but right now we need to be supportive.
Yeah, I was really heartened to see ALA right out the gate get into that lawsuit with the union for the IMLS staff. That showed great leadership. Was happy to see it.
And Leslie Berger, as interim, I give her all the credit in the world for stepping into an impossible situation and being as flexible and providing this interim leadership and bringing in some of her Princeton folks to kind of fill some quick gaps. We just have to, always be looking forward. So thank you for that question.
All right, Rhonda, do we have any questions from participants? Yep, Rhonda.
Hi there. Exciting. Thank you. Michael Atwood, feel free to clap because I'm on screen. Okay. Well, there's been a robust, thank you, first of all, to our panelists. There's been a great, robust conversation around accessibility, which both folks from Overdrive and the lyricists responded to, and the conversation around AI books. There was a final question around beyond Palace. Are there any lessons learned from prior recessions? Because when people suffer from financial troubles, it is assumed this is when libraries get their greatest recognition and use. And just are there ways voters can directly support libraries, I'm assuming, during downtimes? And during downtimes, does popularity equal GoFundMe? Does our popularity equal opportunities for funding? I'll assume that means, unless the person who wrote that wants to chime in. And there may be some more questions too. Oh, Steve, you don't have a question. You are putting in a little chat.
Well, someone had asked a question, Nancy, about have Palace and Libby use their platforms. I can tell you I'm scheduled to go to the Massachusetts Library Association meeting, and they have in most of the Boston and area libraries, CW Mars, big Western consortium, they're putting up the call to action, which directs them right to the state Massachusetts Library page, which is instructing them on how to engage with their state legislators or their U.S. reps. Sonoma has one right up now. If you click there and you see Libby, we're trying to say, do you have a card? But right there, the first thing is in a big book or a shelf. It's whatever link Sonoma County put up there, and I'm not sure where it links to. We call this a call to action. When Mayor Adams in New York last year threatened to take $50 million away from New York City libraries, the 3 NYPL Queens and in Brooklyn, Linda Johnston, Save Our Library, and they raised $100,000 like in the first week on the Libby homepage because, libraries were at risk. They also had a donor with some matching funds, anonymous.
Well,
so we're using our platform, and we invite anyone who has contact with our team to see, are we using all the tools we have to, we have a tool we call Newsroom, where you can kind of use our products to broadcast your messages, whether it be books or otherwise.
No, that's great. Thank you, Steve. And Tara just put in the Palace advocacy page as well. So a lot of great information shared and rich conversation in the chat from everyone. So thank you to our speakers as well as every library person in the audience and those folks from the Overdrive and Lyricist teams.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for making the time for this. It's always good to speak directly with our vendors, and it's great that you guys make yourselves available to have these kind of informal discussions to see how we can help each other.
Sure. Thank you so much. This was great. Very informative for me also.
I just miss being in the Khalifa offices where this all started like 20 years ago or so.
We have a new office in San Francisco, so next
All
time
right.
you'll have to swing by.
I will do that.
All right, thanks, folks. And
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
I'm
And
sorry I'm
that's our-
missing your keynote, so I'll have to have Kevin Kuhn, who I think is on the call. He'll
Yes.
make sure I get the benefit of all the other good content everyone's presenting. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Veranda, Michael. Look to
Thank
see you at
you.
one of the next conferences. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
Steve
good
out.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
All right, folks. So we are heading into lunch break.
And
Yeah,
Paula,
lunch
can
break
you
till
just tease for us what's coming on after lunch?
Well, I certainly can, Christopher. So 1 o'clock, we have the 1 to 2 of the Palace ILS integration. We're going to have panelists from Lyricist, from Bywater on Aspen, and from Cersei Dynex, who have actively started integration. Then we'll have a session on collection development acquisitions on the Palace end of things. So, and also a recent new edition that is being developed in California called Adult New Readers, which is being, even as we speak, ingested into the Board/Palace platform. And then in the end, we have a education reporter from Cal Matters, Tara Garcia Matheson. She'll be interviewing former state senator Susan Egnan, who helped craft our Freedom to Read Act. So that should be really cool. So everyone, go have a good lunch. I'm going to suggest sushi. It's really up to you. But we will see everyone back at 1 o'clock.
Okay, I'm going to share it. There we go. All right, does everyone see a screen in front of them that says Palace Discovery and Access Integration?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right. So hello, everyone. My name is James English. Thank you for joining me and my fellow panelists here from Bywater and from Cersei Dynex. I'm going to be talking about Palace Discovery and Access Integration and how we approach that. And then I'll turn it over to my panel colleagues to talk about their perspective on how we're approaching this and how that's worked so far. So, when getting digital content into a catalog, it kind of depends. From the Palace perspective, working with libraries, there are a number of systems that may be at play or being used by the library. There could be the traditional ILS that they use for managing their catalog, circulation, and patron data. We currently work with these today through a protocol called SIP just to facilitate authentication. But there are some ILSs that also provide web service type authentication endpoints to us, as well as proprietary APIs for managing that to authenticate Palace patrons to access library content. There are also things called library service platforms that you guys use. They are typically cloud-based and they're more modern platforms. Some example will be Cersei Dynex's Blue Cloud Services, as well as things like OCLC's World Management Services. And these are particularly developed over the years to facilitate bringing on more digital content and rounding out some of the features of an ILS or extending those features of an ILS. And lastly, we have also represented are the online public access catalogs. Great example of that would be Aspen at Bywater. But others you may be familiar with, such as BiblioCommons or Solus or things from Communico, could also fall into that category. All right. So when we work with libraries, we see there's kind of this four basic ways they get content into their catalog. Typically, the publisher of the content provides some type of ebook vendor a Onyx file that has metadata describing the product. The ebook vendor then converts that into MARC, and they may have a variety of workflows that they support, such as they email the MARC record to a library that signs up for emails for any ads or additions. And then the library cataloging manager downloads that, probably manipulates it in MARC Edit or some other type of tool, and then loads that into their ILS. Sometimes they may also just the library may go to a website where there's an endpoint where they can download the MARC records themselves as opposed to having them pushed to them through emails type distribution services. And again, they go through that same manual workflow of manipulating the data and then loading it into their catalog. And then you have this other method that is primarily used with library service platforms in which those MARC records will also will set up some type of FTP to send those files over to the library service platform provider, where they include those records in a knowledge base, where libraries that use the library service platform then download those MARC records or turn on through some type of configuration portal that is integrated with their ILS, turn those records on into their discovery system. And then lastly, there's always more. There's API integrations. And so API integrations are dedicated proprietary application programming interfaces that the different ebook providers may provide to both library service providers as well as OPAC or ILS systems. So that those systems and those vendors of those systems can integrate into that ebook vendor. Probably the most prolific example of that is Overdrive. All right. As you can imagine, with the number of different ILSs, permutations of possible systems and workflows out there, you quickly can approach, off the top of my head, I could hit 75 different permutations. The number of ILSs times the number of library service platforms or the number of OPACs that you have to combine depending on what the library is using and what type of mechanism that they want to use to transmit catalog records. Wow, that's a lot to manage for both technology providers and vendors on all sides of the aisles, from the ebook vendors to make sure that their APIs can work with an OPAC to an OPAC or an ILS to make sure that they're consuming those APIs of an ebook vendor and then having to maintain that. We know a little bit about this at Palace because that's exactly what Palace does with different ebook providers today. Boundless, Overdrive, Cloud Library. We are in those APIs every day, trying to keep them up to date, maintained, and working in Palace so you can actually get a book through to the app. But there is hope on the horizon. We call it Open Publication Distribution System, OPDS. It is an open standard format used to syndicate electronic publications. It allows for easy discovery, aggregation, and access to digital ebooks through a simple catalog format. What is different from probably other protocols that some of you librarian professionals may know, like OAI, PMH, those really focus on cataloging and describing the artifact, whereas OPDS defaults more towards access to the actual digital file. And that's why we use it as Palace, because it facilitates exactly what we're trying to do. Easy discovery, easy access. So it's essentially a great way to distribute digital content like ebooks and provide different platform partners an easy, interoperable way to work with us. What's even better about it is if others adopt this protocol, they can easily extend their integrations with through OPS to a cataloging system to an ebook vendor directly and reuse that implementation so that they're supporting only one implementation. And Palace has experience doing this because we actually do that with several different ebook vendors today, in which we've worked with them to develop their own implementation of OPS. Because it's a standardized protocol that we know how to interpret, we can just use one implementation of our connector to service multiple content providers. Some examples of that would be Fulcrum, ProQuest. We've worked with custom ones built by different universities, such as Columbia for Springer Nature. We've are working with, of course, BiblioBoard, another company within Lyrasis and a platform, and it talks to us through OPS, and all of the different type of publishers and publication partnerships they bring to the table as well talk to us through OPS. But we use one common interface to do that, so it's easier to maintain, and it's easier to scale it up to whatever type of custom implementation you want to do in your system. So how does that look like? Well, each type of platform provider, whether it's an ebook provider like Palace or any others like BookBridge or ProQuest, they can simply take the APIs they already have, and then in front of that, they just simply publish an OPS document that describes that. And it creates, instead of having unique implementation and integration requirements for each and every iteration of an ebook service to a catalog or ILS or library service platform, you have one implementation and to describe this protocol, OPS, which is a data format in JSON, and it creates a common protocol and model and language that any other type of system can leverage once to implement into all of those different ebook services and providers. So it really simplifies the ecosystem, makes it more interoperable and open, which in translation, why is that valuable to libraries? Lowers your costs because we don't incur those costs that we pass on. Two, it gives libraries more choice. It simplifies the headache you have of either doing manual processes for a number of different ebook service providers or getting your records through one type of system because they're only available from that ebook provider and that one type of workflow or system. And so it gives you a lot of freedom of choice and operation, and it can help you normalize your workflows. So that's kind of what's in it for all the different parties. Lower to maintain, easier to utilize or take advantage of as a library. So what can OPDS support? Well, it's not just ebooks. It's a highly extensible protocol. It is publication agnostic. And what I mean by that is you can have different types of media in there, digital publications, such as video, text, audio, images, ebooks, audiobooks, which you're familiar with Palace. It can represent the different types of publications and how they're organized, such as periodicals or monographs, albums, tracks, articles in journals or magazines or editions of a newspaper. It can do the different type of publication relationships, how different publications relate to one another through series or volumes or issues. It can support different access modes, streamed versus packaged content. When I say streamed, something that you have to be online, packaged, something that can be downloaded to a device such as an e-reading application so it can be open and read offline. It manages the different access control protocols, DRM or non-DRM, or just simply access control. It can include accessibility metadata so that you can communicate to your users with the features of an e-publication and its accessibility features to help them if they use assistive technologies or need some other type of reading assistance in order to access the content. Provides license and information availability in that way that we know what are the terms of use and how that can be applied. And of course, the most important aspect of it is OPS provides a link object to the actual artifact or the interim artifact needed, such as a DRM license, in order to access the content. And that's what really makes it very powerful. So here's who we've been working with on the content side. Today, there's a number of different content providers, ebook providers. Some of them, we actually work with them more as a distribution partner on their behalf so that they can provide OPS. And then we have others under development in an R&D state, namely Springer Nature. We have 2 different magazine providers that we will are in development right now on their OPS feeds. And then we're talking to an open educational resource provider, Pressbooks, on an OPS feed as well. And why is that great? Well, I think it's great because we're also working with terrific partners like Cersei, like Bywater to bring that same type of capability, that same protocol into fashion on the discovery side. So of course, there are the different providers that have always used OPS, whether that was Simply E or now the Palace Project, Cantook Station, Thorium Desktop from the Redium Foundation, and of course now ASPA and its Lita app. But we have under research and development investigations by Solus, BiblioCommons, and of course our good friend and partner here today, Cersei Dynex. So I'm gonna let me see, I'm gonna stop there and turn it over to my colleagues so that they can kind of talk about it from their perspective. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen as well.
Very good. All right, Bill, do you want to chime in with your experience of the integration process and how long it took and what all the challenges were? Not all of them, but you know.
Absolutely. And James chime in anytime. I know you were very involved with the integration. So a little bit about Bywater. We're a support organization and we support open source software. And one of those that we do support is Aspen Discovery. With Aspen Discovery, I know James worked with Mark Noble, who's with Grove, another support organization, to be able to do the integration with Palace and Aspen. And when that took probably 12 months or so, James, it took a little bit to kind of get that through, didn't it? Anyway, they work directly with the developer to make sure that the information from Palace could be brought into Aspen. And when we bring it into Aspen, we will do grouped works with it. So they'll say someone's searching for Tom Sawyer and it's available off the shelf. They'll also see something from Libby, but Palace will also show up. And when Palace shows up, the patron can then choose to check out directly from there. When they do check it out, they can then go directly to the Palace app to be able to view it. I think, James, you're now unmuted.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was hitting the wrong button. Yeah, it didn't take actually that long. The work was primarily on the Aspen side, so Mark, and that was mostly just getting familiar with what the protocol was, how it looked, and understanding how they could incorporate into the Aspen architecture. At that point, all we had to do is provide a URL and maybe some guidance through our implementation docs or just pointers to the open community spec. But after that, it was relatively quick order in a number of weeks that he was able to pull the feeds and get stuff to start to index. And then it was just really a matter of designing how they would Aspen would use that, maintain that feed, keep things up to date. And that was done totally independent of us. It allowed Aspen and Bywater to operate independently without both companies and parties having to align schedules and roadmaps together. There's a common reference, common implementation, and we just had to provide the test resources for that. It was a few months and we had it. I think it was longer to get folks to know about it and turn it on in their production systems.
A couple of things that are of note is that Aspen Discovery is a discovery layer, so it goes on top of different ILSs. And those records are not brought in directly to the ILS. So they're just being showed in Aspen. Palace is maintaining them. All the search stats and everything are coming through Palace when folks do check out. The patron is able to see what they have checked out and also do renewals. They can place holds. And if y'all like, I can show you an example or two. Let Katie talk first if you like, and then I can show example. I want to give folks free time.
All right, let's do that. Katie, you want to chime
Sure.
in and just where you guys are with implementation? I know it's early days, and thank you very much for coming to tell us about it. As you know, we're very excited about the integration possibility of Cersei, Dynex, and Palette. So, yes, please tell us.
Yes, indeed. So yes, as Paula mentioned, it's early days for us still. We've had a bit of a long runway for this, and there's a couple of different reasons for that. And I'm actually the product manager for two different products. One is eResource Central, and the other is Cloud Source. And as part of the broader discovery team at Cersei Dynex, we understand that eResource Central is badly in need of updates and modernization, bring it into the new architecture. And so part of our longer investigation has been thinking about the future of ERC itself and how Palace and specifically OPDS fits into that. And so the progress we've made, our developers have reviewed all of the documentation that James's team provided, both about OPDS as well as about the Palace project specifically. And James's team has very kindly provided us with test access so that we can deepen our investigation in a realistic context with realistic data. So that's what we're now embarking upon. And next steps, I think, what we're really excited about is the functional sympathy. eResource Central does some very similar things to Palace, but Palace is modern and it has some features that I think we're really keen to incorporate and some improvements that would benefit us in our discovery, just broader discovery context generally. So moving forward, I think as a first phase, we're planning to implement support for OPDS and then integration with the Palace project, respectively, where we can accommodate Palace data and the logic into our discovery systems. There's a lot of overlap between Palace and our proprietary V2 API. So post Palace integration, we're exploring a potential future where the infrastructure that we update for ERC will be based upon OPDS. And so I think just personally, in addition to what Palace has to offer, like the marketplace, I'm really excited to see broad support for a wide variety of ebook collections, both popular and academic, because those are of a lot of interest to us because we like to accommodate both the academic and the public use cases very broadly. So we're really just excited about what the future holds and really appreciative to James and his team. They've just been absolutely wonderful.
That's awesome. So James, the OPDS part, is that the first like major lift? Is that the
For an integration?
yeah.
Yes, we've actually integrated into Cersei Dynex ERC to give libraries, depending on what type of authentication support they require, either SIP or Cersei's own web services that work with both their ILS technologies. The OPDS piece is really more about the content and access, and our hope is that we can help the industry use this. OPDS actually will allow Cersei to operate around Palace. They don't have to get content from other OPDS vendors, ebook vendors or content vendors. and go through Palace. They could actually work directly with them because we may not be a client at one of their libraries. And so,
Sure.
but our content partners may be. So
Yeah.
ProQuest would be an obvious example. And then Circe could easily just operate and integrate with them using the same interface that ProQuest uses to support integration into Palace. And that lowers, I mean, that just, I think, helps the libraries because at the end of the day, we're mission driven. And so if we're making the environment better for libraries, that's a good thing, whether they're adopters or
Right.
clients of Palace.
And
Right.
I think like one of the biggest gains that we have is a standardization of these structures. You know, when
Right.
all of our content providers are in agreement about this is the structure that we're going to support, it just makes our life so much easier on the tech and the software side of the house. And so we've certainly felt the pain of within ERC, you know, where you know, one of our content partners might change the data that they're sending through the pipeline and break the integration. And, you know, we've got a line of customers that are upset. You know, James is laughing because he's probably had
We're
a
living through
similar
a couple of them now.
And so I think like the mission of OPDS, the push to get it accepted as an ISO standard, and really honestly the feedback that we're hearing customers gives us a lot of momentum to coalesce behind this in a way that I think benefits us all. And so I really do hope we actually have an enhancement forum within CRC Dynex where customers can request a change and an improvement, and then other customers can upvote it. And I think the Palace project integration is one of the most popular ERC enhancement forum requests that we've had. And I do believe that Palace has benefits and implications potentially beyond ERC in our discovery landscape generally. So I don't want to just limit it to that one product. But we hear you loud and clear that this is important, and we think it's exciting and important too. And we're just really pleased as peaches to be here and able to work with y'all on this. And I do hope that y'all continue to make noise, because there's nothing as motivating to content providers than hearing from their customers that we want you to support this. And
Yes.
so the more you talk to your ebook providers, your content providers, and say, we support Palace, we support OPDS, and we hope you do too, the more pressure they'll feel to comply and to be to support this standard.
Yeah. So Circe Dynex, we've got, I think, 58 jurisdictions in California that are Circe Dynex clients. But as you say, the interest is not just here in California. There's also statewide Palace integrations or Palace platforms in New Jersey and Georgia and whatnot. So there's lots of states with lots of Circe customers who are interested in this. So it's great that that you're interested as well, because Bill, you can show us what actually happens when integration
And I'll
works.
share my screen. So Aspen does work on top of multiple ILSs. So it does work with Koha, Carl X, Evergreen, Symphony, and Sierra and Polaris. So libraries can use it that way. So I'll share my screen. All right, so I'm going to show a couple here. One is Santa Barbara. So this is Aspen Discovery. Someone comes in, they type in, I do Pride and Prejudice and do search. So what we're looking at here is the results for that. We're going to see a grouped work. You can see right up top, we have the hold from the book, but we also have Libby. And then you see the Palace project here. This item's checked out. It's the audiobook is checked out, but the ebook is available. So then the patron can come in, they check this out, do it with their library card. It'll show up on their account. And then when they go in their account to view it, it will open up in Palace. One of the things that the development community did when they did this too is that when it does open up, it does ask if the patron to download the Palace app. So it gives that little feedback there. And then if you look over here on the left-hand side, under the facet, notice it does have a couple of the facets here. And we can see the statewide California Palace Marketplace, Grant Marketplace. So and then you have the academic one here too. So it is bringing in from several.
Yeah, it's mission critical really in getting visibility in the OPAC, in the catalog, or the discovery layer. Because otherwise, library services continue to be the best kept secret because everything is hidden. Nobody goes to the website to learn that you have a new thing or a new app. So everyone's still kind of doing what they did 10 years ago, not knowing there's new stuff on the horizon. So when they do check the catalog, it's a great advertisement for, other resources that patrons have access to. And which is why we're very excited about it, and which is why we wish it happened faster.
And one more example for you, City of Orange. So I just did Tom Sawyer there, and notice there's different Tom Sawyer books, all available from Palace.
Awesome. So let me ask you guys this, Bill and Katie, why? Why do you bother? Why do you want to integrate rather than, I don't know, forcing people to buy your all your platforms and et cetera. So why are you guys participating? Oh, Bill, we'll start with you.
I'll go ahead. So Aspen Discovery's whole goal is to bring in content from different sources. So we don't care where it's coming from. What we want is the patron to be able to have the best experience possible and to find information that may be on their website, maybe going in different silos. So what we want to do with Aspen is to bring in e-content from any source, including Palace, Libby, Hoopla, the ILS. And then when that patron goes in, they're normally going to search that catalog, and then they may go out to another source, and you have to kind of feed them and teach them how to go to the other sources. But if it's all in one location, then the patron can go in and have that experience that they might have it at if they go to Amazon or something like that. You're going to get multiple choices, and why not have all the library's information promoted in one spot?
Okay, Katie.
Yeah, so
Any
just a
thoughts?
little background about me. Before I joined Sushi Dynamics about 2 years ago, and before that, I was an electronic resources librarian in an academic library. And I think we've all in this sphere, we felt the pain of our content vendors not playing well with others. And I think libraries have a reasonable expectation that their discovery providers will accommodate the content that they are subscribing to. And so, the work that we do is not just about, customers and market data. It's personal to us, because we've had this experience, ourselves. And I think, hearing from our customers is compelling. The more we hear from you, the more we understand how important it is. And that helps us to make decisions about our own software roadmaps, about what the priority should be and what sequence we should complete things in. And so I think it's a combination of those things that, I've been in that position, I've felt that pain, and I don't want our customers to feel the same frustrations, if we have the power to make a difference. And then, getting that direct feedback from y'all, just makes it all the more real and important to us, I think.
I think probably one of the frustrations from a library's perspective the process that our integrated library system vendors have for prioritizing functionality. So, you know, everyone has a process to rate kind of the things that you're interested in, or to submit, you know, a functionality that you're interested in. And on your end of things, you're looking at the numbers and how many want this, how many want that. And, you know, it's, you know, we do submit, we do say, hey, we want Palace integration, or hey, you know, whatever it is that we want. But I think there's a little frustration. It's like, are you hearing us? Do we have enough numbers? Like, you know, is the lift too hard for the benefit? You know, these are all the things we don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think you know, you know, from my perspective, we're committed to the integration. I think the reason why it takes so long, at least from Circe Dynix's side, is that ERC itself is a legacy product, and it, you know, is long past overdue for a makeover. And, you know, the question that we had to answer was, do we integrate directly with Palace first with this existing structure that we know needs an overhaul, or do we take the long view and use this as an opportunity to give our product the makeover that it needs, and to make sure that it's giving you the functionality that you need?
That's cool. That sounds win-winny.
Yes, yes.
I'd like to give a plug here for the open source community too. Because with the open source community, when a library wants something, they can submit it to the group, and then from the group, someone can pick it up to be able to actually develop it, and that can be sponsored by multiple libraries. Once that's sponsored, it's added in for everyone. So it's a really good model to kind of speed things up and get things pushed through, because the open
That's
source
awesome.
community, it's really good. It's really is a good community.
And James, what is the practicalities of integrating multiple ILSs? Is this a one at a time kind of thing?
Yeah, if we had to do it by APIs, it would be serial. We would have to line them up in a big calendar, spread that out, and then balance that with all of the other maintenance, support, integration for content, improvements to features, and put that in a big long line, and you'd be waiting years. With OPS having a protocol, we can actually operate independently and support multiple vendors at the same time. So right now we have several that are already actively either developing content services through OPS, and then some actively developing discovery implementations with OPS. We're trying to focus on keeping the apps running and supporting those efforts, but it allows them to move independently and in parallel and not be bottlenecked by us and our resources and engineering resources. So it allows them to just basically operate together independently of us.
So it sounds like from the library perspective, we should continue to keep adding Palace integration to our you know, list of things, that functionality that we want from our ILS, regardless of where things are and who you're working with. But to continue even with Circe Dynix and, you know, and with any others, to say we really do want you to integrate, and you know what the benefits are and all that kind of thing. But don't, for us, it's important to keep asking, to continue to ask. Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. Yes. You know, keep in mind that, you know, no product developer ever has free reign to make choices within a vacuum independently. You know, we all, you know, have to be answerable for how we prioritize things. So the more volume we hear from customer, the more, you know, chatter there is around an issue, the easier it is for us to greenlight a project. And I would say burn that candle at both ends.
Excellent.
Request it from both your ILS, provider and your content providers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important information for us because sometimes we feel like our requests are falling on deaf ears because they're not, implemented that next year or in that next sprint or, however you IT people operate. But yeah, it's just important for us to keep asking. It's not going into the void. It's mission critical for us getting all of our ILSs integrated so that we have the benefit of people being able to see all of the content that the library is purchasing and not having, stuff secreted away only for the initiated kind of thing. All right. Any other thoughts, things you want to point out to people before we look to see any participant questions? Any last thoughts, James? You got a thought?
I did want to call out one of the things Katie mentioned. We are working with the NISO we're actually working towards a grant to help cover the work to advance OPDS as an ANSI NISO standard. And then our partners at Redium Foundation are also building more tools and reference technologies that anyone can use to incorporate this protocol into their systems. And what's really nice about OPDS is it does keep pretty lockstep with the things coming down from W3C in regards to accessibility, things such as data mining, which is if for those in the tech side of the house, you've probably experienced some IT administration overload as these crawlers for AI bots start to try to suck up your information and bring your systems down. There are attributes in OPDS that kind of communicate where they need to go rights, get rights first before they start crawling that metadata. So there's a lot of advancements coming on with it, and it's a very extensible protocol to use.
Bill, your thoughts?
I just want to say how great it's been working with James and Palace Project. They've been so good. There will be issues that come up. Developers reaching out to developers, working out things. Both have been very easy communication. Palace is a great group.
Cool. And Katie, any final thoughts?
No, just echo what Bill said. James and his crew are just a joy to work with, and I'm sure that there will be things that we'll have to figure out and bumps in the road along the way, as there always are. But I have no doubt that we'll work together and figure it out. And
That's awesome. Love it.
just super excited and grateful to be able to hang out with y'all today.
That's awesome. All right, Veronda, do we have any questions in our chat? This is
Yes.
Veronda, our assistant director.
One huge shout out to the open source community. I just wanted to make sure that got heard. And I'm not sure because I was trying against all logic to still get Kathy in, but I'm not sure if you saw this about cataloging. Does Palace have the ability to add new types of content or new kinds of cataloging rules? For example, if they developed a more robust model for cataloging things such as video games, could Palace adapt? Would it be difficult to retrofit old records on video games to new standards?
Wow. Let me to answer that question, let me see. So old records probably are encapsulated in an encoded type of file format like MARC or ONNX or some other protocol like ANSI Z39.5. So there's
They are.
all these legacy type of protocols that kind of get embedded into the industry. And that can be very difficult to unwind if you're trying to be backwards compatible into that. But in terms of, let's say, modeling a discovery record and an access record to an old video game, if a video game is a publication, OPS is agnostic to a publication. And so for Palace to be able to integrate into that or an OPAC, it's really just understanding and modeling cataloging what that video game is and how do you access the video game resource on a library server or system. So it is very extensible and it can support different types of publications. Again, we're working with the OPDS working group to get more formal documentation about video, music, periodicals, just so there are working examples, but there's nothing in the protocol that prohibits it. It's maybe its Achilles heel is it's so extensible that you got to come at it with a use case and then try and apply it, and it will work. It uses schema.org as the basic vocabulary for describing data, which works really well in web development. Um, so yeah, I think it's possible. Will Palace put it in there? Well, in the mobile app, would we be putting video games into the mobile app? That's a more uh, difficult integration because now the media and the code that video game is written in, you then have to support into a mobile application and it starts to get packed. We currently have the app pretty packed with different DRMs to navigate that with the different schemas used by uh, ebook vendors, and that's just with ebooks alone and audiobooks. And so adding other types of media, whether that's video or music, brings together all of their digital rights, the way they model, the way they technically play it. So it's possible in the app with great expense, definitely possible within the data interface and cataloging that we use around OPDS.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Shout out to me for understanding the entirety of that answer. Thank you.
Shout out.
I'm serious. A miracle has occurred today. Thank you, James.
James, is there any low-hanging kind of fruit there for integration or new media formats? Like is magazines nearby, or like what's
Yeah, magazines are very nearby.
all
We
right?
are working through it. They are periodicals, as you librarians know, are modeled very differently than monographs and books.
Oh, serial cataloging will kill a person. It'll
Yeah,
kill a
it
person.
is. I'm learning about it, and it can be modeled. And we modeled it. We have modeled it for OPDS. We've also actually in that modeling have a recommendation that's going to be added. And it's around one of the unique aspects of how like magazines, digital periodicals are distributed. And, as you know, like with a magazine, 90% of it is all glossy ads and pictures and that's how they pay for the publication. But then there are articles that people actually want to read. And so the way they distribute that in the digital publishing magazine industry and newspaper industry is they distribute the issue as a digital publication, but it's a kind of a fixed layout thing, has all the glossy ads plus the articles, and you can pinch and zoom and read it. But they also provide for the article, the thing you can actually read, a web-based view of that is reflowable and can actually render readably on a mobile device without pinching and zooming to go through it. So OPDS, we're modeling that right now to where you could have like the item that is the current issue of People magazine, and here's a list of the articles, and you can click the article and up pops the web view of the reflowable view instead of you downloading or opening up a view of the whole digital publication in fixed layout and zipping, pinching and zooming to kind of flip through it. So that's one of the things that's kind of on the right near horizon. But with that, when you can start to support things like magazines and newspapers, you can support periodicals, edited volumes, comics and manga, which is got crazy organization on that, and to story arcs and series, edited volumes of a series, and learning about that
I,
as
Yeah.
well.
well,
But
just to add to that, I don't know if you've found this to be true yourself, but once the structure is in place for items in a series for something like magazines, that's very, very similar to the structure that you would need for TV series. In some ways, doing the work in one area is laying the groundwork for another.
Wow, James, I don't know how old you are, but I hope you have a lot of work years left because it seems like there's a lot to do.
I'm not the one doing it. I just get to talk about it. The real work is from the open source community that are around OPDS and the hardworking engineers, both commercial industry and in the nonprofit. So a lot of the folks at Redium are commercial implementers of these technologies. And so they're part of the open source community. They're just not, they're just not out in front of it, if you will. So hats off to all of those folks because they're the ones putting the real intellectual capital into this.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And we can see like from the Aspen integration how what a game changer it is for patrons to be able to see content that right now they're not being able to see because they're trapped in one silo. So I want to thank you three for taking the time. I know you're all traveling and on other conferences and doing other presentations, and I always marvel at the capacity you guys to just jump in, and it's great because it fosters good relations with your customers, our libraries. So thank you all, and I think. Rhonda, do we have any last questions or? Oh, you're muted.
Just wanted to thank you guys as well. And we appreciate your time and your energy. Thank you.
Yeah,
Tell
awesome.
me if you
Thanks,
have any
guys.
cataloging questions too. Okay. Just tell me. Have a good
Open
day.
to it. Open to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, and we will be having a break as we wait for our next panel. Matthew is in.
Hi.
Hey,
It
Matt.
actually had me under Cav at first, and I didn't
Oh,
realize that.
really?
So I'm trying to figure out what
So
was going
Cav,
on.
dispersions. You're the one who wants everyone to be you.
I mean, I thought you knew that by now. Have we not met?
Well, this is a fight. This is a fight that will go on in perpetuity. All right, friends, we're at 2:10. We are ready for our Palace Collection Development acquisitions, including recent addition, adult new readers, and we're going to start off our panel with Kavanaugh. Cav, tell us about yourself and your title and anything else that's relevant at this point.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is actually Valérie Alert Cavana, but everyone calls me Cav because you all may not say it correctly, which is fine. So I like to make it easy on everyone. I have been in the library industry for just going on 8 years now. I was working at III, better known as Innovative Interfaces, Inc. I know many of you all have the software that I used to sell in the Southeast, but I then moved over to Lyrasis and working directly with the eBooks and community engagement division here. And I've been most recently promoted to the senior sales manager. So I handle all things to do with the Palace Project, the Biblio Board, as well as our indie author project. And I do have with me Matthew Davis, and I will let Matthew give some color to all the things that you do.
Yeah, my name's Matthew Davis. I'm one of the collection development librarians at Gwinnett County Public Library in Georgia. But the reason I'm here today is I'm part of the leadership team for DPLA's Curation Corps. And if people don't know what that is, we're a group of librarians, library students, and information professionals who work on different projects for DPLA. A little sheet to remind myself so I don't forget things. The main one that we were working on for years was the Palace Bookshelf, which is a bunch of curated group of public domain books as they go into the public domain, these ebooks, making sure that they're good copies, that sort of thing. We also contribute to DPLA's open access titles. I'm currently working on a group of documents for the creation of NATO that will be created into one ebook. And
wow.
For Palace Marketplace, we create selection lists that I can show a little bit later, but some of the really important, I think, is going through the indie titles and finding the titles that are the cream of the crop to suggest for libraries, because it's a wide variety. And then there's other projects like the DPLA's Banned Book Club that we worked on.
Yeah.
Very good. And Kathy?
Yes, I have been working with California Library Literacy Services Program since 1995 when I started the program at the Santa Clara City Library. But I've been in the field of adult literacy and English as a second language since 1989. And so I work on special projects for the state library and literacy initiatives and have had several different LSTA grant projects, making videos, and making these books that I'm going to talk about today. And I also like to keep a hand in, and I teach English as a second language. And I I go around the country doing workshops and at conferences and just love working at the local level as well as the national level.
Awesome. All right, Cass, take it away.
All right, so we are going to start off, myself and Matthew, talking about the Palace Project, and we're going to focus on the various parts of our ecosystem. So as many of you know, there's, of course, the Palace Marketplace, but we're going to discuss all items, including the marketplace and all the solutions that we can provide libraries in the US and internationally that has been made available to libraries that adopt Palace. So I'm just going to give a quick highlight. I kind of trimmed it down a little bit. So what is the Palace Project as it pertains to content? Of course, we know it is, in fact, a reading app, an e-reader app. It aggregates all of your digital content in one location. Magazines are going to be able to come into Palace by way of a partnership that we are working on and finalizing at the moment. So stay tuned there for those that wanted to see not only the ebooks, obviously, and the audiobooks, but wanted to have a publisher that they can source content through Palace that are offering subscription models for magazines, very popular magazines. And I think you'll all be happy with that once it's made available to you all. The Palace Marketplace is the nonprofit marketplace for where you would purchase your ebooks and your audiobooks. I call that our self-serve area. That's really the only location where you can actually go in, create cards, and have those cards validated independently. Or, of course, Matthew will discuss with you all how we can assist with that process and support you all when it comes to your collection development efforts. We do have the Palace Bookshelf, which Matthew touched upon earlier. When we first started the Palace Bookshelf, there was somewhere around close to 20,000 open license titles. And because of the work that the Curation Corps of Librarians have been doing in association with Palace and Digital Public Library of America, better known as DPLA, that collection has grown to over 30,000 titles, and it's going to continue to grow. Of course, the virtual library card is how a lot of folks in California can now access Palace, as long as you all reside in California, which you all, I'm assuming, do, unless we have some visitors from other states participating on the call. They too can go in and source the content and read and listen to the content that you all have purchased on behalf of your library patrons there in California. So how's Palace helping libraries and librarians? So of course we do a lot of things to help libraries and librarians, but in relation to the content that we provide, it really comes down to the licensing models. That is really one of the key and main differentiators between ourselves and some of our other e-content providers in the marketplace. And that's really because we are all about working with libraries, partnering with libraries, and more importantly, advocating on behalf of libraries in all areas of the work that we do. Because of those relationships that we fostered with the help of Digital Public Libraries of America, we have unique licensing and publisher relationships. Some of those licenses include perpetual licensing, simultaneous use licensing, ownership licensing models have been made available. That came about just about less than a year ago. And we also have annual subscription licensing models as well for e-content. We find that the melange of all these licensing models do help libraries when they're thinking about their budgets, their return on investment, how to hold down their whole queues. Not to say a double entendre, how to hold down their whole queues, but all of that is made possible because of flexibility and the choice that we make available for collection development managers, library directors, anyone in your library who's has a hand in your e-content and what's being made available to your communities. We do have custom lists and lane creation features where we work with the Curation Corps of Librarians, and Matthew will show you some of that work that's been done as of late. We try to keep it very relevant to the month, to the times, and it's a growing list that you'll see that he'll share with you. And of course, all of the Curation Corps work that is done on your behalf as library partners of Palace is complimentary, so i.e. no cost, gratis, free. So it's really, again, how we're supporting our library community by allowing you all to have a resource and us being a partner with you all. So the licensing models, there's some new ones here. So for those who've attended presentations in the past may have seen this grid, but it's continuing to grow, which I'm excited about. So here's some licensing models that make us very different and that allow those libraries and you all to have the ability to have those choices and the flexibility as you're curating content for your libraries. I mentioned the perpetual. We also have that. So it's the one copy, one use, the unlimited one at a time user. So there is not a time there. Those titles are not time bound, which we really love and appreciate. And our library partners appreciate that too. We also have what we call our bundles of 40 with 10 lens available at a time. That's been very popular, especially for libraries that are looking to maximize discovery and availability of popular titles. And we want to make sure that libraries always have something available for their library patrons to listen or to read. We have quite a bit of publishers that are offering that licensing model. Please know that is the first licensing model other than our perpetual use one at a time licensing model that we do request of publishers when we're working with them and trying to get them on board onto the Palace marketplace and outside of the Palace marketplace ecosystem. Then we also have our bundles of five concurrent loans. So if we look at the bundles of 40 by 10, as well as the 5 by 5, we call it in-house here, those are really unique to Palace. You may not see, as far as I know as of today, at 5 p.m. Eastern time, there have not been licensing models similar to those very two licensing models. And the 5 by 5, it may be higher as far as the cost per circ for your title, but at the end of the day, it really gives libraries an opportunity to test out a title before they invest additional funds or additional copies of that title. So it's a great way to have that sense of flexibility and control over your collections. Now, what's new? Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
just that because the question is about this screen. Are
Mhm.
the numbers of fixed, for example, are the numbers fixed? For example, could I buy 50 lens with 10 lens available at a time?
It really depends on the publisher. So they're pretty distinct. So one publisher may have 55 lens, one at a time. You could have some publishers that just do the 5 by 5 or perpetual. It really depends on the publisher. But what's really great is many of the publishers are offering a variety of licensing models, depending on the title.
Great, thank
No, you're welcome. And let me just also say in the facets section, when you're looking in the Palace Marketplace, there's ways for you to be able to kind of call those licensing models that you're interested in sourcing and maybe taking a melange of a few of them and adding them to your search criteria as you're looking for various titles that meet that specific or those specific licensing models. Okay. So what's new on the market as of January 29th, I only remember that day because that is the day of my birthday. Penguin Random House actually made 95,000 plus titles available with a unique licensing model, and they're doing a one lend on that. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a bit, but we do have in this presentation, I'm not quite sure, Paula, if you're going to be sharing it with those who've attended or who attended the meeting today.
Yes, we will.
Perfect, because I do have hyperlinks within the presentation that's going to be able to take folks directly to those pages where they can see the titles that are available from Penguin Random House. We also have the ownership model, and that is really something that came about again just a little bit over a year ago around this time. And those titles are for libraries to own the digital rights to that actual title. You can, though we do have folks always ask the question, well, if I am purchasing unlimited one at a time or one copy, one use, licensing models, why would I want to own it? And that's really up to the library. Again, the pricing, when you'll see that, and I'll have an example in one of the following slides, the pricing that the publishers has put out for that has been consistent across the board to the same that you would pay if you had an unlimited one at a time copy. Again, we're looking to provide libraries with the opportunity to have some flexibility and to make choices that are best suited for their library if they so choose to go that route. So what's in the works? Favorable licensing models, we are discussing something very different than what you'll see anyplace else, and that's from HarperCollins. I'm not going to give a spoiler alert on it because I don't want to hold DPLA's foot to the fire, but I had some really great conversations with Michael May, who is the director of eBook services there at DPLA, and he informed me that those contract conversations and negotiations are coming down to the very end, and we're all going to be very happy with what he's shared with me. But we will have more information to share at the April 22nd Palace Project Spring Update presentation. For those who are interested in attending that presentation, there'll be a lot more on what's going on with the additional publishers, especially the Big Five. We're looking to expand our ownership model, which I talked about ownership, but going into Canadian indie publishers as well. We do have the independent publisher group, various titles that they've made available. I believe it's upwards of 38,000 titles, as I shared with you on the previous slide. And now we're looking to add some of our Canadian independent publishers as well that will allow you to have ownership of those titles when that's made available within the Palace marketplace. Now, what's ongoing? What's not going away as far as we are aware, right? I mean, every day something changes here in the world that we live in. But what we're really strong and confident about is our Audible and our Amazon offerings. Currently, we are the only e-content provider that's making those titles available for our library partners, and we are excited about that. I know libraries have been really excited to see this as an offering as well. And just to make sure that we're all talking plain, of course, we know Amazon, Audible, those are the big fish, but Audible has been really receptive when it comes to the requests that we've made, that we've received from our library partners since the beginning of our relationship with Audible. And we do have an ongoing list. So if libraries are interested in a title that they're not finding within the Palace marketplace from any of these two publishers, please let us know. And we do add that information on the list. And that goes right up directly to either at Audible or Amazon or both, depending what you're looking to source. Also, Amazon Publishing, now they're a little different. They are open to requests, but they've informed us that they are not committed to fulfilling them. However, we are finding that they're slowly sending along titles that we made requests for, and we just have to kind of sit tight. We're at the mercy of those two. But the fact that we have a sizable collection still at the moment that has been circulating very well for libraries to have sourced that content, we're confident that that's going to allow Amazon and Audible to see the fruits of this relationship. Now, I didn't mention Macmillan earlier, but here's the single lend licensing model, and I'm not going to click here because it'll take me out. But Matthew, when you're doing your show and tell of the Palace Marketplace, would you mind at that point just showing an example of the Penguin Random House imprint, one of the titles there, and subsequently to that, if you can also do the same for one of the Macmillan titles,
Sure.
so that folks
Yeah.
can see them in live and living color.
All right.
So just wanted to thank you. I appreciate you for that. So we're at 96,000 titles now. I said 90,000 plus, but we're at 96,000 titles available from various imprints from Penguin Random House that are doing a very unique licensing models right now only for the Palace Marketplace. So we're excited to offer that. You know how difficult it should have been or would have been or actually was to get any of the Big Five to lean into a licensing model that's quite different than what they're accustomed to offering the library space. Then, of course, Macmillan, we have right now 788 titles to date. And as I mentioned a moment ago, Matthew will show you exactly what an example of both of those for you to see. Now, here's an ownership model. Just thought this was important for us to have this here as part of the presentation, because with the ownership model, I mentioned here, the price points are very similar to others. So if we're looking at the 40 by 10 for this specific title, Curse of the Rogue, it's a 40 by 10 licensing model, and the price point is $13.96. Of course, all of these prices, as you know, are not dictated by Palace or anyone here. These are all what come through directly from the publishers. And they have the unlimited loans one at a time and the unlimited loans one at a time, but the ownership model of that. Again, when you're looking at this, you can say to yourself, what makes the most sense for my library? What's the best return on an investment for me? What is my library's practice as far as ownership or not ownership? But at the same time, you're not going to be penalized because you decide to own an actual digital copy as opposed to own it in perpetuity with unlimited loans. But this way you can actually take your digital copy if you wanted to and store it on your own in your own server. So it's entirely and hosted on your own. So there's a benefit there if you wanted to do that. And we do have some hyperlinks that are available when the presentation is shared that you'll be able to see some additional frequently asked questions that have come up along the way, and any of the ownership model terms that have been made available for you all to look into that a little bit deeper as well. So more on Palace. So here's what I wanted to present to you in addition to all that you saw in the Palace Marketplace. When I mentioned Palace Marketplace being your self-serve area, kind of like your Amazon, put in the cart, click purchase, and it gets delivered to you. This is going to be a little bit different. This is where there's a lot more curation that comes into play, one of which is from BiblioBoard. These are two companies, BiblioBoard and the Indie Author Project Select, that fall under the eBooks and Community Engagement division here at Lyrasis. And the BiblioBoard content does offer simultaneous use, perpetual and unlimited ebooks. There are currently 40,000 titles that are in that collection, spanning over 90 publishers and 30 world languages that can be sourced from that collection. It focuses mainly on juvenile, YA, and adult titles. We're getting new titles all the time. We also added some new publishers over the last course of the year, and these are 4 of which that came to be: Shout Mouse, Journey Press, Marcosia, and University of Nevada Press, all of which are offering their titles also for a sim-use, perpetual, and unlimited licensing model, which we think is wonderful. Then we have the Indie Author Project Select. That's where the best of the best award winners, the most notable independently published works can be found. And that collection is actually, as of today, 1,165 titles. Many have won awards from Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, USA Today, New York Best Time Seller titles. So it's worth definitely taking a look at any of those titles if you're interested in offering something very different, very unique, but still quality work that has been recognized in the industry. Here's another partnership. This is one of our publisher partners. They were formerly known as Unlimited Listens and recently rebranded, and they are now known as BookBridge. I know California does have a nice ebook collection, a Spanish ebook collection of titles that they source from Unlimited Listens, i.e. BookBridge as of today. And in addition to those titles, there is also ability for libraries who are interested just for their own library, who may want to have a collection that's a core collection. Those are 5,000 audiobook titles, and those span across the various genres such as Christian, Western, fiction, children's, young readers, and classics. There's also Spanish language audiobooks there. That's 1,000 plus audiobooks. There are read-alongs, and we also have our language learning. And so this is all made available through Palace, and this is one of our publisher partners. So if anyone's interested in that, there is a link that you can request to view the catalog. Any library that has any consideration in this sort of content, because it is newer to our collection or parts of our partnership. We've been working with them now for just about a year and a half, and it's been going very well. Libraries seem to really benefit from the content that they source from this particular publisher, especially if with the constriction of finances, this has been the biggest bang from this for their buck, along of course, with the biblioboard content because it is unlimited, simultaneous, and perpetual. So these are all things to consider as you're working through and navigating through your budgets, as well as sustainability and just providing unique content that will sustain the test of time. So with that said, I am going to pass this along to Matthew, and then I will close out when Matthew is finished. I'm going to go off camera unless there's any questions before I do so.
There were a couple questions, but I think they got answered.
Oh, okay.
Chat.
Yeah, and I may have some questions afterwards if there's time, but
Yeah.
we can also compile questions that anyone has, and I can email them to Cav, and she can get them back to us.
Absolutely. Happy to do so.
All righty.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and actually bring up Palace Marketplace. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of coverage from the Zoom.
There we go.
So
All set.
great. One thing I know there was a question about Audible, and I think it was answered, but another thing just to be aware for everybody looking at what I'm doing, there's a publisher list and you can see everything. And I believe if you go into it, it'll show you Audible as well. Whether I'll be able to find it right now or not. I don't know if that's everything, but it should give you a good list of it.
And
Now,
that'll be a question, Matthew, from us too, is like how often this is updated. But that'll be one of the questions I'll send to Cav. Thank you.
not necessarily. So when I work, or I or someone else work on cards for libraries, I very rarely directly work with the library. It's usually one of someone from your staff would fill out a form, and then they would put things like what subjects you would like me to focus on, what percentage of adult versus children's, audiobook versus ebook. And then the big one that comes up, and I'm going to show because it's the facets, and Cap talked about it a little bit, but things like people wanting perpetual unlimited loans, I can easily bring up with the facets. And then when I'm searching to create see, Audible's only 2 years, but when I'm searching to create a card for someone, I can easily bring it up so it's perpetual one loan at a time, and do that to make it easier for everything. So I wanted to show some of the selections, which is this swim lanes, or is it not loading? That's fun. Let me go back to the main and see if there's a reason. Well, this is not necessarily what was created by Curation Core, the Amazon imprints Audible titles, but I know Cav wanted me to show these, the 5 loans. So that looks like a children's book. I think that was not listed, or maybe I'm not wrong, but 5 loans, 5 concurrent loans, 564. Well, let me see if I can also show the single-use penguin. Yeah, that was right below it. And so they're giving the different models, and that is something that comes up when you're searching for a specific model. It's going to show everything, and you'll just have to go through and add it. But I think there's a bit of variety. Go ahead, Paula.
Matthew, when it says, just to clarify, unlimited loan, or one loan,
Yeah.
one at a time for the penguin, does that mean 550 per checkout?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, it's funny. It's new enough that I haven't made any cards where people have asked for that. The last card I made was really going for required that it needed to be unlimited, no time limit to the use, and unlimited use, so perpetual.
But it's an interesting option, because as librarians, we use all of these tools to and licensing models to figure out how best to, buy books. It's like, this is going to be popular for 2 years and then it's going to die. I don't know if this is popular or not. Maybe, one loan, one at a time works for that to test things out. That it seems promising.
Well, so my normal job with Gwinnett, I work purely with the physical titles because we have someone who works with ebooks. And as part of that, I do the book leasing. And that's such a newer model where, there's Patterson or something where it's a huge rush at first and then it goes down and nobody wants it. So you order a bunch for a year and then they take them back. And it's might be that something like this where it's a title you think will be popular for a while, so you want everybody to get the loans quickly without having to wait, and then that's it. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how people are using it. Let's see if I can get the selections to work because I really wanted to show. No, it's weird. It worked earlier today, but also there we go. So some of the other people, I haven't been working on it lately, have been working on these swim lanes and going through, and this is what I had mentioned earlier about this is small press, but also going through the indie titles that we have and finding the titles that are more interesting. They also, I don't know why these other ones didn't load, have things like Women's History Month, and they had YA titles and adult titles in a swim lane. And when you go into it, fortunately, the windows are blocking some of the things. It lets you, if you wanted to get all of the titles at once and add them to a cart, you could just do that, which might make it easier. Something else I'm going to point out since I can is with the cards, I created a little example card. You can either export them to CSV if there's a problem and you need to recreate the card, which from personal experience, when I've been going quickly and creating very large cards, 450 tends to break the system. And this is true. I know this from working with other systems. Ingram breaks it at about 1,000 for cards. But the inverse of that is you can also import things. If you have a list of ISBNs from somewhere else and you want to import them, you could get them in. It will ask you what type of license you'd like, and it tries to give that to you. But if it doesn't have it, it'll default to what license we have. Now, the other option for it is you can do an offer ISBN, but that's a kind of a different sort of ISBN, and you have to be able to find it. So let me see. Yes, so going back to when I'm creating cards for groups, and I receive the email from Cav, go through, look at what I need to create for amount, the budget, what the license needs to be, what subjects would prefer to be focused on. There's some limitations. I know I had a Canadian library ask me for only Canadian authors. I can't search for that through our system or any system, I don't think, unless someone had put that in as metadata in it, and that's not standard. I'm limited to things like, fiction subjects. Nonfiction has subjects and it's hierarchical. So there's more narrow subjects under social science and whatnot that I can search, but limited. And then I send that back to Cav and people check to make sure it's the books that they want, and for the most part it works out well. Usually it takes about 2 weeks because I'm working a normal job and just doing this as a extra sort of thing, along with other people. I mean, I'm not sure what else, because Cav covered so much of the different ownership models. Is there questions or?
We can
Polly.
see at the end if there's questions and if there's time.
Okay.
But like I said, if I can get questions from our participants, and I can send them to you, Matthew and Cav, so I can get them back to them. But given our time constraints, I think let's head on over to Kathy to tell us about this new addition to Bibliboard/Palace Marketplace. Kathy, tell us things.
Thank you. And tell me how long I have, because I know we're a tad behind schedule. Do you want me to?
You still have your 10 minutes because we have a break that we can just blow through.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are just honored to be a part of this whole thing because we're tiny. And this started off as being a project that really was responding to a need for California library literacy services. And we never anticipated that this would grow. And so I'll talk about the need first. So forever, libraries have really struggled to find high quality, high low reading materials, pleasure reading materials for adult learners or struggling or emerging readers. And they have rich life experience. They don't want to be reading about kids' books. They don't want to be reading even adolescent books. They want to read about books that are written especially for them. And this is especially true for the over 100 California Library Literacy Services programs that they want to give materials to their learners and their tutors and their staff. So we saw this huge need and we decided to fill the void by applying for an LSTA grant from the state library through Sacramento Public Library. And so we did not want to presume that we knew what adult learners wanted to read about. And so we did focus groups, we did surveys asking, what do you want to read about? And the results were quite surprising. So for the first project that we did in 2002, where we created 108 books at levels 1 and 2. So this is the lowest level possible for adult learners. We were very surprised that travel was actually the most popular topic. Animals, all kinds of things that we did not anticipate. And so we were so happy that learners and co-designed this project with us. And so we invited tutors, adult literacy volunteer tutors and staff to produce books for this project. And so 75 tutors and staff, and actually a few learners said, we'd really love to be part of this too. It's difficult to write at this this level, very difficult. And so we made some exceptions, but so 42 CLS programs contributed to this project. And so we were just delighted. People loved the books. We were, again, astonished at how well received the books were. Again, we intended this for a California audience, but it turns out that when people got wind of what we were doing, they wanted to be part of it too. So the international literacy organization called Pro Literacy said, hey, we want your books. We want to put them on our professional development website, and we want to translate them into Spanish. We want to work with you on this. And so we were so happy about that. And I'll tell you the upside and the downside of that partnership in just a second. So we said, responding again to the field, they said, we want more books and we also want them for intermediate level readers. So again, we applied, the Sacramento Public Library applied to the state library for an LSTA grant. And so we're in the middle of this book production cycle. And so we are going to be producing 63 intermediate level books. That's it. If any of you know the Fry Index of readability, it's at levels 3 and 4. And so 62 authors, somebody's writing 2 books, are writing the books from 17 different libraries. Turns out that writing at this level is, is a lot harder than even writing at the low level reading reading level. So we are in the middle of that project. We've already done 37 books, and so we are going to be busy bees until June 30th. Each book has tutor tips in the back of it. We really hope that learners will be able to read these books independently, and I'll talk about a way that we've structured them to help with that. But we know that they'll also be used in instructional settings. And so we have some created some activities for before reading and after reading, reading, writing, listening, speaking activities, critical thinking, problem solving, even some math, to really give people some ways to enhance the reading and the learning that goes. We want it to be pleasure reading, but we'd be delighted if it's instructional as well. So why they're actually photo books, and we'll see some in just a second. But why photo books? Well, as somebody in the adult literacy field, we know that photos provide context. They provide visual cues that help with comprehension, and they help build struggling and emerging readers' vocabularies. And this is for native English speakers as well as English language learners. And this really encourages independent reading. So I'd like to share with you now a couple of the books, and we certainly won't read them, but I am hoping that you can. That you can kind of get the idea behind them. I chose two very colorful books. This was written by a staff member at the Carlsbad Library. And so you will see that thank you to our funder. You will see that the text is very, very low level. These books are 300 words total. You can see that the photos really support the text. We really tried to do things so meticulously that if something is mentioned first, it's in the photo on the left. If something is mentioned after, it's in the photo on the right. And so this is just an example. This is about Chicano Park in San Diego. And I don't know about you, but I want to go there now. So the tutor tips, and then of course we credit. So certainly a lot of the authors took their own photos. This author actually also is an amazing artist. And so she created 2 books with her own art, and she created another one for this intermediate level project that is just amazing. And it's a story about her father in World War II. And so this is an example of an intermediate level book. And so this author is a tutor and she's a docent at a museum in her community. And so you can see we now have 600 words total text. So the text has increased in complexity, and so the themes are the same, certainly adult and mature themes, but a lot more text. So this author is inviting learners to engage with art and giving them very interesting interactive activities to do so that they can understand and appreciate art, which a lot of adult learners have not ever had the opportunity to do. And there's the author. We have, and in this, what we decided was to bold words that we thought might be challenging for learners, which we did not do in the first books. So that's what the books look like. And so these books are available in soft and hardcover from our on-demand publisher or printer, Mixbook. And we think the books are beautiful. We hope that libraries will order them, but they're photo books. And as a result, they're pricey. You know, they average about $20 a book. And you need the link to Mixbook. You cannot just find these books anywhere on Mixbook. And so it's a little bit problematic. The links are on the California Library Literacy Services website, but a little bit hard to find. And so, you know, and also not everybody can afford these books. And certainly if you're teaching a class or a small group, a lot of people can't afford to buy multiple copies. So the ebooks are just a huge boon in this regard. So we are, you know, so happy that they are available on pro literacy, but that's only getting them out to the adult literacy field. And
Right.
you have to create an account, and it's a little bit cumbersome, and it's not as user friendly as we would hope. So if by partnering with the Palace Project and Biblio Board, we're able to get these books out worldwide to library patrons and folks who aren't in adult literacy programs. So people who may be in their adult education classes or in community colleges. We know anecdotally, we hear from a lot of libraries that they see, who have the printed copies, that they see people checking these books out and looking at them and reading them in the library who are not part of their program. They see teenagers, they see people who may struggle with reading, but they're not in a program. And so we're so happy that this
Yeah.
partnership is going to allow more people access to these books.
Kathy,
And
do you have an ETA of when they might arrive
yeah,
at?
the first 35 are going to be available. They're on Mixbook, probably at the end of this week, and then the remainder will be available. The grant finishes on June 30th, so they better be
Okay,
available by then.
excellent.
And so, but yeah, we have been talking to our friends at Palace Project and Biblio Board saying, ooh, we've got a lot going on. And although the uploading process is super easy and they're wonderful folks to work with, it's going to take a little time. So we're shooting for July to work with Palace Project and Biblio Board because we just have so much going on before then.
Excellent.
And so,
Excellent.
yeah. So in terms of
Oh, carry on.
oh, sorry. Again, if you are teaching, if you're an instructor, if you're a tutor, or you have a classroom, having the books in electronic form is wonderful because I didn't even think about this. My students actually pointed this out to me. We were reading a book about the farmer's market, and I said, "What vegetables do you see?" And their eyes are better than me, and they were seeing vegetables and fruits that I didn't see. And so you're able to actually zoom in, in an ebook. You can't do that in a printed book. And so we can, in murals, we can zoom in on different themes and talk about those things. These books show up, well on smartphones as well as laptops, and most adult literacy students don't have laptops. They have their smartphones. So, and again, Kevin, you can talk more about this, but there's a button that you can click and it enlarges the text, right, for increased accessibility and visibility, which again, we're just like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful for folks who have tracking issues or, who really need more visibility in books.
That's awesome. I look forward to seeing these titles showing up in Palace so that we can purchase them. All right, so gang, we're running a little late. I want to thank you guys for your time and your beautiful information that you shared with us. I'm excited. I have a lot of questions and we just don't have time right now. So I'll be on the email with the questions for you guys from me and from our participants too. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. And hey, Chris, and let's prepare for our final piece de resistance, the interview with former State Senator Eggers on the Freedom to Read Act. Let's see if we can find our friends to.
And Paula, I think Senator Eggman might be under your name.
Okay, good.
As the last Paula McKinnon that's on the line.
Yep, I've been finding me all day.
And then I believe Tara also needs to be made a co-host too, when you have a minute.
There she is. Excellent. Okay, so Tara and Susan should be able to unmute and do video. Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Susan, are you able to unmute? Let me look.
Okay. All right. I think there we went.
That's it.
Okay.
We're just waiting to see if Susan's able to get in.
Oh, she's in and she's unmuted, Paula.
Excellent. All right. Wait, why am I not seeing?
I labeled her as Dr. Eggman.
Got it.
And Senator, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent.
Perfect. All right. So we're just not seeing you because your video is not on. There you go.
There he
Hi,
goes. There he goes.
Susan. All right. Technology. Hey. All right. So here we are in our final presentation today on our eBook Summit. We are honored to have Dr. Susan Eggman, a former, former senator, but 4 years active duty Army combat medic, mental health professional, educator, politician, served on Stockton City Council, turned out after 12 years in the California legislature. Senator Eggman is best known for her policy work in mental health and end of life care, and she's an avid reader and longer library card holder. And Tara Garcia Matheson, award-winning reporter who investigates the use of technology in education, been writing about schools for more than a decade. First as a local reporter in Chicago's northwest suburbs, and then nationally. Tara, you may want to get to know Veranda, who's also in Chicago, or was in Chicago. She's in Chicago, you're not. Cal Matters, its merger with the Markup, an investigative newsroom that challenges the technology industry to serve the public good. Tara's work has appeared in a variety of regional and national news outlets, including Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, Boston Globe Magazine, USA Today, and Wired. Jeepers creepers, people. You guys are on it. All right, Tara, take it away.
Yes, thank you for having us. So I will just be asking questions. I'll keep an eye on the chat. If people want to chime in with follow-up questions, I'll try and keep an eye on them and work them in. But yeah, can you start, Susan, by sharing how this Freedom to Read bill came to be and how you came to be involved?
I can. And I'm impressed everybody's still hanging on after a full day. That's fantastic. Yeah, so the last couple of years, everyone may have noticed there's been a real, I think, divisiveness in our politics that has bled over into a lot of policy. And a lot of that policy, and I'm a Democrat, I was a member of the majority party. I don't think reading should, or libraries should be political at all. I mean, to me, that's something that should be an accepted part and a valued part of society. But there's been a real, I don't want to say obsession, a focus, I think, by the Republican Party or an activist about sex. So it often bleeds into LGBTQ issues. It bleeds into like who's teaching who what. So there's been a lot of vitriol. And as you've seen around the state, there's been attempts to book bans and attempts to So not that we asked for it, but we found ourselves in a place to having to defend institutions and processes and teachers and librarians in ways that you didn't think before that you would have to be defending. So this bill came about after a series of bills that were attempting to ban certain kinds of books. And I'll never forget one of my colleagues, who's a lovely person, but just was so obsessed with this idea. And I apologize for saying this, but about blowjobs. I mean, she just kept trying to show me this. There's blowjobs and there's blowjobs, and I'm like, I've never seen blowjob about in the library, and I finally had to say, I'm finding this conversation offensive. Now, please stop it. It was just like this very overt fear of children seeing things they shouldn't see. I don't want children to see things they shouldn't see. I'm a mother. I have a child who's also been a lifelong reader, and because of that, I think she's getting ready to go off to college. I mean, reading is good, and so this real, I think, limit on people wanting to limit what people could see prompted, and Al Marasucci was the lead author on this, prompted him, and he was the chair of education at the time. But this deals with community libraries, because we found it wasn't just in schools, it was in community libraries. And as somebody who has known librarians my whole life, I know them to be professionals, and I know them, right, that they have policies, they have guidance, they have best practices. The idea of forming citizen, library approvers just harkens back to an old time that I don't think we want to go back to. So this bill set out to, all right, so all the libraries have to have a set of policies about what books are accepted and what kind of books aren't. And a policy that community members can, so it's about transparency, right? A policy that community members can say, hey, can you look at this one? Or what is the policy? Or how would you make this decision? So a pretty basic bill saying that the California State Library will have like the resources. Libraries all will have to present their policy to them to have it on display, and then go from there. I was just reviewing back on the vote counts, and it was, I mean, almost 100% partisan, which is sad. But that's, I think, the kind of corners that people have taken through this last couple of years. So that was why we did the bill. And I was also chair of the LGBTQ caucus. So I was, I also wanted to co-author the bill because of that, because of my community and the very nasty public attacks that happen continually in committee meetings now. It wasn't used to be, committee meetings weren't like that, but they have really turned into a lot of theatrics around fear, around demonizing others. And it seems to be related to lack of education and information. So everyone should have the freedom to read.
Yeah, well, you call it a basic bill and then mentioned that it was a real partisan vote in the end. And can you tell us any more behind the scenes? I mean, was this a bill that was hard to pass? Did it require political maneuvering?
Not necessarily, just because California has a supermajority in both houses and in the governor's mansion. So it wasn't hard to pass because the Republicans, the LGBTQ caucus is now larger than the Republican caucus in the Senate. So, I mean, I just think it shows you where Californians are. And so again, it is sad, I think, that we have to focus on things like this when there are bigger issues that we have to restate that people have the freedom to read and that public libraries are public.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think our audience here is the choir on this, but a big part of this bill is about maintaining access to knowledge in public spaces. And so can you talk more about who stands to benefit when public libraries maintain this access?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk about who wins if we don't have access to libraries, right? But yeah, I think community members at large, as a young LGBTQ person, I can remember the first time I was in that aisle in the library, and was so happy to be able to find something to read in secret, and maybe that's what they're afraid of. But for, a young 16-year-old, it was so incredibly affirming to find these books about things that I felt. So clearly for the young LGBTQ folks who are trying to find identity, but for women, I mean, and even for kids of a certain, sometimes parents aren't good about teaching about even like starting your period or things like that, or about intimacy, about domestic violence. I mean, there was just a wealth of things. And as I've always told my daughter, if you read, I mean, you can travel anywhere in the world, just, through books, through adventure. So for a lot of folks, and I served on the city council where we had a robust public library that was constantly under attack. And I got a lot of trouble from the police union when I served in Stockton, known for a lot of issues. But when we wanted to start, they started cutting the library. And I said, it's a crime fighting tool. It's also a place for people to go and to be safe and to have activities. I mean, it's just a real welcoming public place, I think. Many of our librarians have turned into frontline people for our homeless population, or folks who find themselves, on the streets a lot during the day, often use a library just as a place of respite and read. There are a lot of really big readers who live in everybody's community and sometimes don't have access to those books in their home, or you don't want to have to go buy something to be able to read. For many Americans, the library is still the opening place, I think, to a world of reading. And if you can read, I mean, then we all win, because then you're going to be more educated. You're going to live 8 years longer. Your community is going to be stronger. You'll be able to have a Whole Foods in your town versus not. I mean, it's those very basic things, I think, that just translate.
Mm-hmm. And tell us more about the protections that this bill gave individual librarians and why it was important to you to really codify these protections.
One of the things that we've seen, I think, with teachers and with librarians, again, those frontline public workers oftentimes become the face for the anger of those who don't like policies like the Freedom to Read Act. So there are instances, especially of teachers and some librarians, getting terminated, put on leave because they refused to ban a book, or they refused to remove something, or they refused to take a rainbow out of their classroom. So we wanted to make sure those people have protections. If they were following the policy of the library that was approved by the state, then their actions are legal. So thereby, right, if we want to protect them, you also have to have the policy in place to be able to have like that. That is the policy, and that is what they're following. So that is why we're not going to fire them.
Mm-hmm. Now, the bill kind of lays out which materials cannot be removed from libraries and why. So the idea that materials can't be removed because of the topics addressed in them, or the views, ideas, or opinions contained in them. What is the vision for what would rise to the level of being allowed to be removed?
Oh, I don't know. We should ask a librarian. I mean, I'm a social worker. I'm not a librarian. I don't know that so member Marisucci might be able to answer that better than I. But I think there's already a process in place for that. I mean, right? There's already books that I'm assuming are not in libraries because they have been deemed to be inappropriate or not of value. So that would continue to be the policy that you learn in library school.
Mm-hmm. And what impact have you seen from this bill so far? Do you know? Has it?
We don't know, because it doesn't go into effect all the way until 2026. So they are currently working. Everyone's working on their policies. I think the state has already established, right, what some models are. And if you go on the state library website, you'll see, I think they have one from San Leandro that already has, because some libraries already had some, right? But this is just those that, see, Chris says, yes, they have a deselection process. Right. See, there's a process. They're professionals. They understand how to do it. You don't want a social worker doing
it. And I'm curious, are you still following this? Do you think there's still more work to be done in this space?
I'm still following it. And, as we're living through these kind of very interesting times right now, I think we're all thinking about First Amendment rights, due process. Those are two parts that are part of this bill that, have always had a strong place of value in our country, and we hope that it's going to continue to. But we'll see. There is a real assault on education right now, and any kind of diversity. So I would guess we're seeing it come. I'm a professor at Sacramento State and Stanislaus State, and everyone has had to go through all of their documents to take out words like woman, gender. You can't have any words like that anymore. Now that's censorship, and you can not do it. but you know, I mean, Pell Grants are really important. So it is a really interesting time. So I would imagine more things will enter into this space. But for now in California, I think we're going to be okay. It's interesting. This bill started with Fresno wanting to do one of these because one of the supervisors there in Fresno County, county supervisor, went into their local library and saw they had a pride display in the children's section of the library. And he found that so offensive and outrageous that he thought there should be, you know, parents shouldn't have to let their children see this. Now, again, most of the time, I mean, in the children's section, right, parents take their children there. So parents always have the right to say, no, honey, I don't think you should, I don't want you over here. But you shouldn't have the right to say, I don't want other kids' children over here. So he reached out to states like Kentucky and Texas and the Carolinas to see what kind of policies they had, because they're much more comfortable with banning books. So I just don't think we need, you know, some of the states that do not have the highest educational attainment, not that we're that great, but I don't think we should be looking to those kind of states to figure out how to ban books and ban the access to information and people being able to read.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like, I mean, do you think the process of having to create these policies over, you know, the next several months and into next year, I guess, I mean, do you think that's going to spark some fights locally? This is obviously pushing back on some places that were considering or enacting book bans.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think, yeah. I mean, Huntington Beach always tries to do something. But you know, if you have the laws in place and then you have the legal system, which hopefully continues to hold and we continue to follow the rule of law. But if a policy is in place, it is very hard. And we, you know, we also work with the ACLU on this and with a lot of privacy folks about, you know, what holds up in court and what doesn't. So as long as your laws are in place, it is harder for them to be challenged, but it feels very reactive to have to continue to do issues like this.
Mm-hmm. When you were, you know, going about the process of getting this bill passed, had you heard of any local stories of librarians in California facing consequences for their collection decisions, things like that?
I don't know if I would say consequent, but people were put on suspension. I think people were put on administrative leave. I don't know about any actual firings, but it certainly became a big issue, at least in 2 communities, and then it picks up steam from there.
Mm-hmm. And so was part of this bill trying to nip it in the bud before it got bigger?
Yeah, because if they can't point to a law why we can't have book bans, then we can have book bans.
Mm-hmm. Jefferson is saying in the chat that from a First Amendment perspective, something would have to be obscene for it to be removed from a public library. Maybe pornographic, depending on what you define that.
That is put right.
Right, which is tricky because, you know, there's art
Which is
history
tricky.
books that have statues of people who are nude,
Yep.
and yeah, where
Yep.
does it cross the line into
Yep.
being obscene?
Yeah, and it's and of course the issue around transgender community is, you know, one of the things that really activates some folks. So a lot of the focus is on that, but you have to know once a book ban activity starts, it grows, and then it comes at a different population, as we're seeing trying to dissolve some of our African American history. Our Smithsonian institutions, and so it's, you know, it is a very slippery slope to begin to ban books and ban thought and ban what people have access to. So I was proud to be a co-author of the bill and feel like it's sad that we have to have them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As you know, I've reported on access to knowledge online for students and schools in particular. We called my series at the Markup Digital Book Banning to highlight exactly this parallel between removing books from library shelves and blocking access to certain websites in school, because from my perspective, it comes down to the same thing as access to knowledge. And so this bill did not apply to school libraries.
No.
What are your thoughts on students' rights to information and our kind of collective access to knowledge, either online or in school libraries? I mean, was there an element, was it a conscious decision to keep schools out of this bill? Are they covered in some other kind
Right, they're covered in another body of law that deals with K through 12 education. So these are just the public community libraries.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to online access, in reporting that story, public libraries have access to the same E-rate federal funding that to tap into that pool and get discounted pricing on telecommunications equipment, they have to have these web filters in place that end up being used in schools in some places in really political ways to censor certain information. In reporting that story, I learned of some libraries that had similar concerns. Some libraries actually decided to forego E-rate funding to avoid the filters altogether. Obviously, that creates an equity issue. You have some public libraries that can afford to give up those discounts and some that can't. And my reporting didn't really bring me to places in California about this, but I don't know if there's anything you want to share about how you think about access to information online and where regulation might be able to step in to protect that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a hot topic in the legislature, and I'm turned out now, but I'm assuming those conversations are going on as we're already always talking about trying to regulate AI as well, which is a whole different body of law. Yeah, and again, as chair of the LGBTQ caucus, it is often mostly around LGBTQ issues that some of the filters. It's so funny to me. We're talking about protecting the children, and more kids die from gunshots, right? And which is what's killing kids. It's not reading about Johnny likes Johnny, but that's where we are right now. So yeah, that is a real issue. Should some things be banned though? I mean, I think some of the things that are very much I mean, there's already some filters on some pornography. Do kids lie? Do they get in? Sure. But there are some, we did some legislation. I don't remember the details. I was not an author on that, but there was an argument amongst progressives about it was regulating some social media and some of the LGBT community. And I did not side with them on that because I thought that was, I don't want gay kids to be hurt any more than any other kids. So why are we trying to make these allowances? And that was specifically on social media issues. So those kinds of things, I think, would be. I just lost my train of thought. But those are some of the issues I think that some regulation is important for kids' access to social media and those kinds of things. But sites in schools, I mean, kids have experimented since the beginning of time, no matter what the medium is.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to do a reminder. If anybody has questions, drop them into the chat. Was there anything that you wanted to be able to touch on that we haven't yet in terms of getting this bill across the line, or what you're hoping?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the schools getting their policies together, and then we'll see if there's much pushback. And maybe Chris could tell us if there's been more pushback in the local communities as they're developing these policies. I think that would be interesting. Has there been much of that, Chris?
So for full transparency for the library folks on here, I'm the person at the state library that reviews the collection development policies. If you have submitted yours and I haven't done the review yet, I apologize. There's many to look at. In terms of what we're hearing from the state library, we aren't hearing where it fails, right? We aren't hearing like, I'm not able to do this. Most of what we're hearing is, if I put this draft of a policy in front of my board, would it pass? And the clear-cut consequences of funding that's at jeopardy if you don't have a compliant policy tends to make the decision more crystalline for boards, in my opinion, because that's a very intriguing consequence for choices.
Are you
Well, it's certainly a hard line, isn't it?
I'm curious, Chris, are you expecting any battle lines to be drawn as we get closer to the deadline for everybody to have these policies?
I'm hopeful that there won't be, actually. I think that their library collection development policies were already largely crafted in a way that met many of the pillars of the bill, and it's really just adding specific language that matches the bill that is the change, not what the policies are effectively doing. Because as you said before, libraries were so politicized, Senator Eggman, they were not political, and the guidance really is apolitical. It's about justice more than anything.
And you see in the chat, some folks are talking
Yeah,
about
Nicholas is
also
pointing
people
out,
just take the books.
right, yes, and
Like I pick
so
up trash when I take my walks. I guess other people take books when they go to the library. Rude.
right, and so I'm curious, are fines still widely? I live in New York City where there are now no longer fines for late books, and I'm curious if people can take advantage of that to take a book that they don't want other people to have access to and keep. I don't know if either of you have heard about that.
There are, it's a trend here in California as well to embrace the no more fines situation. So, you know, somebody stealing a print book in this day of ebooks is really pointless. I think somebody can ban a book in one region or one state, and those people can have access to that very same book in the next state. All they need is a library card from that state, and they can read ebooks. So, I mean, you know, all of this effort and hoopla, I think, is just a lot of shock and awe, and it doesn't really have a lot of impact at the reading level. I think kids are getting to access what they want to access. They're just not talking about it.
Nicholas did mention that in Huntington Beach, they're holding a special election where 2 items are on the ballot. One is to overturn a resolution that authorized a citizens review board for children's materials. So another kind of issue about managing collection decisions. Another to put any decision over library privatization up to city vote. So.
Wow. Try as you may, it's very difficult to stop people from reading what they want to read.
I was actually in reporting this.
We are on Al Gore's internet. So.
Yeah.
I think
don't
go ahead, Veranda.
I was just going to say, I don't necessarily agree with that, depending on where people are. We work nationally at Khalifa along with our fabulous California libraries, and we even have folks at other state libraries. I was sitting around a book about, we're doing a course on about anti-racist positive whiteness, and I received a note back from the fabulous librarian I sent it to. She's like, don't send me anything else about this at this email. So I mean, and in small towns they don't have the budget. If a book gets stolen,
they don't have the budget.
They don't. And I'm in Chicago now, so come back, Tara, come back to Chicago. And I worked with libraries that served like 200, the jurisdiction served 223 people, and they were the only thing in town. And, you know, if somebody takes a book from there, I mean, they had a Commodore 64 computer in the 2000s when I was visiting them. So for a site visit to help them get enough hours to stay open, because they, you know, that is the place to be. And I think that's where those resources are most needed. So I think it's something we still really need to fight for on behalf of our library brethren and sistren and them around the planet.
Yep.
Andy points out the presence of some of these controversial titles in digital collections might not always be known to people who want to get rid of them. And so maybe we might be quiet about that. Maintain that access.
Yeah.
The shutty uppy effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, I want to thank you both for your time and your efforts on this, Susan. This is, you know, an important step for us, and California is still a pretty accepting date, but we would like to see similar legislation happen
Other states.
in other states that South Carolina, etc., or having Tennessee, or having really difficult issues around book banning. But I want to thank you both for your time. It's super interesting. Yes, it's been a long day, but it's a lot of info, and I'm sure that we're going to have questions for you, Susan, afterwards. So I have your email, and there may be some follow-ups. Okay.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you all for all the work you do.
Thank you very much. Chris, any closing remarks?
Just that this project is supported in part by the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the Library Services Technology Act. It's as administered by the state of California through the California State Library.